And welcome once again, SpartanMag Live. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in. I'm going to test a couple of things, make sure that we are live. Had to go to a different set again today. Hope you can hear me all right. Invite you guys to go ahead and post over in the live chat area to let me know if everything is sounding okay. We were planning to do things a little bit differently today, but once again, okay, Cartero 917, let me know that everything is all right. We got a couple people chiming in. You know what, guys? Never a dull moment. Sorry that we're 15 minutes late here, but planning to do this on my phone right now. I'm not doing it from the phone, doing it from the laptop. So rather than doing it with two screens, I've got to do it with one, and I've got to make an adjustment here on something else, as a matter of fact. And it was a minor thing. It looks the same to you guys, but it was a screwball deal. I usually do this on the iPhone, and I go to the YouTube channel, and basically the area where you press start is not there. And I looked all over for it, and it looked like a different interface. And looked at it, went in, went out, looked around, hit some buttons. Couldn't get it figured out. So I was trying to cram, watching some Iowa video, going over a little bit more of the Michigan State game to get a little bit more of just a better handle on things so that I can come on here and make it look like I've got some interesting information for the Michigan State fans out there. So you know me, I'll cram right up to the last minute, about 8 minutes, T-minus 8 minutes till it's airtime. Then I start setting things up, getting ready to go. 5 minutes to go, going to get the little thumbnail picture together, and the start button is not there. It's not your problem, it's my problem, but I'm not as angry as maybe I could be or should be as long as everything doesn't get knocked down here. Let me adjust something really quick, and I'll be back in 1 second. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this, set the microphone up. Believe it or not, that's a textbook from the 1980s. I paid like $50 for that textbook. It's a Shakespeare class, and I kept it. And now it's a good microphone stand. How we doing, everybody? If you don't know what the heck's going on here, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. We've got a nice little website that covers Michigan State football, basketball, and recruiting. It's part of the Rivals.com network, and we've got a nice little batch of subscribers and a wonderful online community. Sometimes we get together on this thing called SpartanMag Live. We take questions at the Underground Bunker message board. The Underground Bunker message board is the church of what's happening now when it comes to Michigan State sports. Our Spartan Maggers, our subscribers over there, they post questions, mailbag style. Once a week, I answer those questions here. Also field some questions live in the chat area, so go ahead and ask some questions live in the chat area. It's been a little bit different week this week for obvious reasons. Usually we do this on Wednesday, preferably earlier in the week. Doing it on Thursday night this week, a little bit different. I've got to get to work on the pre-snap read right after I get done with this, and looking forward to that. Conan Dyke was in on a Zoom conference call with Joey Hauser and Aaron Henry tonight. He'll have a notebook on that information at SpartanMag.com. As you're watching this, if you're not watching live, it's probably already over there. So if you're interested in Michigan State basketball, go over to SpartanMag.com. We've got you covered over there. And as always, the Final Forum message board, Underground Bunker message board, SpartanMag.com, talking about Michigan State sports around the clock. And Spartan Mag members know that it might be 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I'll be on there answering questions, bringing up things, talking about whatever. It's all Michigan State sports. It's all fun. If you're a Michigan State fan, give us a thumbs up here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with SpartanMag.com, get over there. You can try 30-day free trial subscription. We think that you will like it. So let's get to the questions right now. Question number 1 on the mailbag. Ryan from Jackson, Michigan says, Jim, after the big win against Michigan, 27-24, Michigan Stadium, I was there last Saturday. Amazing performance. We'll be diving into that a little bit. I know everybody wants to move on a little bit, but we will dive into that game and pick nuggets and bits of information, point it forward, and try to get some information, try to get some a little more understanding on what it means going forward. Ryan says, after the big win against Michigan, how do you think Michigan State, will respond at Iowa this weekend. Can you give us your keys to the game? Iowa 0-2. Konendijk and I talked about this last night for the SpartanMag.com VCast, brought to you by JFQ Lending. It's over at SpartanMag.com right now. We talked about the game a little bit, looked into Iowa, and also Konendijk did a question and answer exchange with Tom Kackert, the publisher of the IowaRivals.com website. Go check that out. It's pretty good. Pretty good Q&A, some more information about Iowa. Iowa is 0-2. I watched their Northwestern game, went over it 2 nights ago, didn't really dive into and studied it, just took like a once-over look reading at it, and Iowa led that game 17-0, let it get away, lost 21-20, but after they took that 17-0 lead, they really could not budge the ball very much. Then I went back and watched their opening game against Purdue, and they lost that one 24-20. All right, so they're 0-2. They're not as bad as 0-2. As far you know what Iowa usually is, and they're like a slightly watered down version of the Iowa that you have in your mind right now. The quarterback is a new one, Petrus. He really struggled with his accuracy against Northwestern. Now, it was really windy that day, and I mentioned on the VCast and also a post that I did on the Underground Bunker message board about Petrus, and I was surprised at how much Iowa went to the air in that game. I think something like 30 of their first 45 plays were pass plays, and it was windy as heck there at Kinnick Stadium. They're going to the air, and that's okay if you've got Chuck Long, but this guy, Spencer Petrus, they're just trying to get him in a rhythm. I don't know what they were doing, but they were throwing a lot. They ended up with a 2-to-1 pass-to-run ratio, and the offense couldn't budge. And just looking at his face, he looked like he was really struggling mentally, like struggling with confidence. Tom Kackert mentioned that in the Q&A, saying that he seems a little unsettled mentally, or words to that effect. And I would agree 100%. So I was watching that, and I'm like, what the hell is Iowa doing? They're out here throwing and throwing and throwing. And I mentioned on the VCast, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if they buckled it down and went back to old school Kirk Ferentz football rather than Brian Ferentz football, which we saw them try to do against Northwestern and failed. Scored 20 points in both games. I went back and watched the Purdue game, opening day. And Iowa against Purdue on opening day at Ross-Ade Stadium was old school Iowa. Under center, 2 backs, maybe 1 back, 2 tight ends, outside zone, fake outside zone, counter boot pass to the tight end, all the stuff you've seen Iowa do for the last 20 years, they were doing it against Purdue. So now I'm like, okay, well, obviously Iowa is still Iowa. So what the hell were they trying to do against Northwestern? I don't know. But they're going to reel it back in and go old school Iowa against Michigan State again this weekend. I'm sure of it. They're going to try to test Michigan State and that 4-2-5 defense that Michigan State runs. We saw Michigan try to take advantage of the 4-2-5. Michigan ran well at times, but not, all day, every down. I mean, Michigan averaged 4.5 yards per carry, 152 yards rushing. Not bad, but not great. Michigan State's 4-2-5 held up pretty good against a pretty good physical Michigan running attack that blew a hole in Minnesota. Turned out Minnesota wasn't very good. Maybe Michigan's running attack is not that great. I don't know, but Michigan's front 7 was okay last week. In the front 7, it's not Shaq Brown in the slot as a nickelback as part of the 7. The 7th man in the front 7 is safety Xavier Henderson at about 210 pounds. Comes down to the linebacker level. And that's fine to play defense against a 3-receiver set, but that leaves you with 1 safety deep, makes you a little bit more thin ice in the back. Now, against Iowa with 2 receivers and 2 backs and 2 tight ends, or 2 backs and 1 tight end, or 1 back and 2 tight ends, will Michigan State continue in the 4-2-5? Yes, because that's what they did against Michigan, because Michigan tried similar personnel groups. And Michigan State held up pretty good that week. Can Michigan State hold up a second consecutive week against 2 consecutive teams that can go physical, run-oriented offense? We will find out this week. I don't expect Michigan State to deviate from what they've done in the first 2 weeks. If Michigan had been blowing a hole in Michigan State's run defense, could Michigan State have gone to more of a conventional 4-3 instead of a 4-2-5? I heard during preseason camp that they were going to have the ability to do both. We've not seen them do that yet. And in goal line situations, they'll go 5 defensive linemen, goal line defense. That's pretty conventional, but I've not seen 4-3-4 out of them. Maybe they have it, maybe they don't. If they do have it and Iowa has success, we will see it this weekend, but Michigan State's going to start out in that 4-2-5 with a single safety deep, Xavier Henderson in the box, and game on. We'll see what happens. Keys to the game, don't let the Iowa running attack beat you. I know that's obvious for most football games. Stop the run, right? Well, Iowa's got a pretty good running attack. The Goodson kid last year is the first Iowa running back to ever lead the team in rushing as a freshman. Iowa rushed for 195 yards against Purdue. Purdue's not great. But make Petrus beat you. Don't let them put a hole in you on the ground. Iowa rushed for 195 against Purdue. Don't let them run for 195 against you. Hold them to 140 or less. Make Petrus beat you. These are cliches, but it's very, very much applicable to this game from Michigan State's point of view against Iowa. So Iowa's offensive line, they've got the Jackson kid at left tackle from Detroit. Looks good, NFL prospect. I'll have to watch them some more tonight to get more of an idea on the offensive line. Offensive line looks pretty good. Looks like an Iowa offensive line. I wouldn't say it's like one of their best, monster mash outfits, but Michigan State's defensive front is not great either. It's been pretty good enough. Firm at defensive tackle against Michigan, surprisingly so. Maybe pleasantly surprisingly so. Slade played well. Jones played well. They were just guys against Rutgers. They were more than guys against Michigan. They weren't necessarily getting off blocks and making plays, ransacking the defensive backfield, but they were firm against an offensive line of Michigan that we thought was pretty good. Iowa offensive line looks like it's probably similar to Michigan. May not do as many intricacies in terms of blocking schemes. It's more your basic inside zone, outside zone, a little bit of counter. But in terms of physical ability, maybe similar to Michigan. So if Slade and Jones can be firm at the point of attack at the defensive tackle positions against Michigan, they should be okay against Iowa. Definitely need to make it that way. Stop the run, make Petrus beat you. Now, Petrus was terrible against Northwestern, in my opinion. Nothing against the kid. I know he's doing his best. Sophomore, they say he's a great kid, pretty good leader. 6'5", really strong arm, not much mobility. Scatter shot accuracy, inaccurate. Make a nice pass once, and then shoot it over your head on second down, shoot it over your head next time, throw it into the ground on a slant, punt. Maybe he'll be great in this game. Not sure. Michigan State's going to do some things to make him read coverages. Milton didn't do it very good last week. Petrus, same amount of experience, meaning not very much. Similar build, similar arm. Petrus not as good of a runner. So now Michigan State's going to change the pictures on him. The one thing about Petrus, he will have seen more zone coverages in practice on defense than Milton did at Michigan. Milton is that his name? Milton? I've forgotten his damn name already. Yeah, Joe Milton. Milton looked very uncomfortable against Michigan State's changing zone defenses. Michigan State, they did some cover 3. They did some 2/3 cover 3 lock where you had cover 3, and then press man-to-man over here. And they did some cover 6, which is cover 2 over here, and cover 4 over here, which is quarters, halves. And Michigan State also did some Tampa 2. So they were doing a variety of things and not declaring it too early. And Milton, he getting 3rd and 15, just tuck and run. He seemed very tentative to want to throw downfield intermediate routes in passing situations, 3rd and 15. I don't think he had a good bead on where Michigan State's safeties were going to be because they were moving those safeties. So if it was, they'd rock and roll them, 1 up, 1 deep, or 2 deep, or 2 deep, Tampa 2 in the middle. They're moving all over the place. And Milton struggled. We'll see what Petrus can do with it. But Petrus will have seen more zone coverages in practice than Milton did. Could help him. Iowa's run defense allowed the running back from Purdue, Horvath, to gain 129 yards, 6 yards per carry, with a long of 33. So it's not like he got 80 yards on 1 carry. They stopped him the rest of the day. That's when Iowa is on defense. We'll probably get into that a little bit more. But when you talk about keys to the game, I think defensively. Contain the run, / stop the run, make Petrus beat you. He's a little bit shaky, I think, confidence-wise. If Michigan State can carry over, tackle well again like they did last week. Michigan State last week did a little bit better in the pass rush than I expected. Coverage was good, changing pictures back there. If Michigan State can carry over with that, make Petrus beat you, and I think you can have a good chance to keep Iowa right at 20 points per game, which is what they've been the first 2 games of the year. SpartanMag.com. Give us a follow here, the YouTube site. 30-day free trial all the time. Spartan Mag. Appreciate our great staff at SpartanMag.com. Conan Dyke doing a great job as usual, covering those Zoom press conferences, keeping an ear to the ground with Michigan State basketball, and also game day coverage. Corey Robinson, our recruiting anchor, keeping us up to date on what's going on day to day with Michigan State recruiting. The decommitment from Grigsby, the Louisiana safety, a couple days ago. He gave us a lowdown on what that means and what's next. He's also been on it in terms of the Rayshon Benny chase and where Michigan State stands there. Justin Thind is outstanding. He's been helping in so many ways. He's been a great addition to the SpartanMag.com news organization and the staff. We appreciate everything Justin does. Ricardo Cooney back after 6 months of quarantine. Got him back out there covering Michigan State football. I think he's got a story on Connor Hayward, that probably just ran a few minutes ago. So all those guys making it happen. Couldn't do it without the cast of thousands, the Spartan Maggers, the subscribers that post and keep things stimulating at the Underground Bunker message board and the Final Forum message board. Big news out of the Big Ten today. Big news for me anyway. And I almost wore a special t-shirt commemorating the situation, but I did not. Big Ten hockey is back. I'm going to be starting, November 25th, 23rd, something like that. Michigan State's going to start with a Thursday-Friday home series against Arizona State. Arizona State's coming to the Midwest to play the Big Ten teams because they've got no one to play in their other conferences. So Arizona State's going to play, I think, Friday, Saturday against Michigan, then the next week, Thursday, Friday against Michigan State. Big Ten announced the first half of the schedule for hockey, and then they're going to play it by ear after the holidays, see where they are. Not going to be any fans there. Hoping we'll see some games on TV, maybe Fox Sports Detroit. I don't know. But I'll be getting the Big Ten Plus package to watch some of those games, and I plan to be in Munn Arena in the press box for some of those games also. I think it's a great opportunity for Big Ten hockey to be the only hockey game in town. And I don't mean this town, I mean on TV nationally. Because people that are big into hockey fans, I know some of you are, some of you aren't, but those that are big hockey fans are not going to have any NHL November, December, probably most in January. I don't think the NHL's announced what they're going to do. Of course, they finished their season late summer, early fall this year. Now they're taking their off season now. They'll start their next season later. So in the meantime, you've got this window where Big Ten hockey can really get a foothold, not only with Michigan State fans or hockey fans, but in Canada too, which is not bad. Anyway, question number 2, Mark from Cascade Township, Michigan. He says, did Nick Samak make that big of a difference in the offensive line performance, or did the comparative scoreboards cloud my vision? Talking about Nick Samak, Michigan State's center, replacing Matt Allen. Matt Allen was injured for the Michigan game. He was there, but not in uniform. Matt Allen struggled against Rutgers. Michigan State's entire interior offensive line struggled against Rutgers. And then Michigan State came out against Michigan, a better defensive front, theoretically, and Michigan State operated a lot more smoothly. It's not like Michigan State was punching holes in the Michigan defensive front on the ground, but Michigan State was functional on the ground. Michigan State ran the ball 38 times, 126 net yards. When you talk about the tailbacks, Jordan Simmons, 3.9 yards per carry. Connor Hayward, 2.2 yards per carry. Hayward's not going to be explosive, carrying it 13 times, but 2.2, we've said it before, I think it's important for Hayward to be on the field and getting the ball in the run game for this reason. He's your best running back in pass protection, and he's a pretty good receiver. Had 2 touchdown receptions. Good valve, good check down to go to in the red zone, and in some cases, a good primary receiver in the red zone. The 2 touchdown passes he had in the red zone last week, he was the primary on both of them. Good utilization of a back out of the backfield with the route expression, breaking it off on time, reliable hands. Rocky Lombardi throwing a catchable short pass. I love Brian Lewerke, but that's something Lewerke did not do well with the short pass. Sometimes you threw nose down kind of too hard, right? Lombardi on time, feathers it in there, reliable receiver. So why do you have to run Connor Hayward? Well, he might give you some tough yards, maybe. But if Hayward's on the field, you don't want everyone to know that it's a passing down. Yes, he's good in pass protection. Yes, he's a good receiver. And if he's on the field and it's 2nd and 7, you don't want the defense saying, number 11 at running back, pass, pass, pass. You don't want it to be 90% pass. So he's got to run the ball a little bit so that they don't think it's 100% pass when he's on the field, if that makes sense. Anyway, Samac, as a matter of fact, got downfield and made a really good block on the second touchdown to Connor Hayward that gave Michigan State the 27-17 lead. Michigan State with the screen pass, leaking it out on time. Samac finding his landmarks, good block. Hayward, really good job bluffing pass protection, then getting out. The timing of that was outstanding. And I talked about it in the .comp article and also in the post-game call-in show that the first touchdown pass, 3rd and goal, the 2-yard line to Connor Hayward in the first half that gave Michigan State a 14-7 lead. It was just an out route, but he took it up the middle through the B gap and then out to the flat. On time, on target touchdown. Rather than him going straight to the flat, which gives a linebacker a chance to undercut it and maybe tackle him or knock it away, Michigan State released him through the B gap, put him into the toes of the linebacker. So the linebacker, he sees the running back is not declared where he's going yet. He goes out, touchdown. If Michigan had watched enough film, and I'm sure they did, I'm sure they watched enough film of Colorado. Colorado showed that last year. And I meant to mention that during the offseason when we were talking about Colorado's offense and some of the little unique aspects of it. That was one thing I picked up when watching Colorado. I'm like, man, they released that little out route through the B gap. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I don't know if Jay Johnson invented that or if he borrowed that from someone else. I don't remember having seen that before. But it's effective for the angle. Touchdown. Michigan State saved it for their red zone script, and it worked. And I'm intrigued to see how Michigan State's play calling, play design, play rhythm, play how they establish their plays throughout the course of a game and throughout the course of a season. Does one lead into another? Because they were outstanding in that game against Michigan with the play calling. I mentioned this before, but I loved how Michigan State, the first play of every drive, from about the beginning of the second quarter on, the first play of every drive, Michigan State did something aggressive, whether it be downfield or a play-action half roll or, maybe even a jet sweep, which isn't that, not like a trick play, but it puts the defense on their heels. You're not just running inside zone on your first play of a drive. Michigan State would put them on their heels and get in attack mode, both physically and mentally and psychologically. I thought it was outstanding. I liked how Michigan State passed on their terms. I mentioned that in the .com article also, that, Mel Tucker talks about how he wants to run on their own terms. Let me just check the chats here, make sure you guys are not trying to tell me that we've got some problem going on here. Looks like everything's fine. But Mel Tucker talks about how he wants Michigan State to run on Michigan State's terms. I thought Michigan State passed the ball, threw the ball on Michigan State's terms. Michigan State stayed out of passing situations. And when they did, 3rd and 15, they ran it once. When they got to 2nd and 10 was quarterback draw down for Michigan State 2 or 3 times and just helped to create 3rd and manageable better. End of the first half, a lot of people wanted Michigan State to be more aggressive. I thought Michigan State played it smart. We know that Michigan's pass rush was dangerous. Michigan State was leading 14-10. Got the ball back. 2:30 left in the game in the first half. And Michigan State ran an out route. They passed on the first down from their own 20. Incomplete. On that play, Hutchinson and Pay were kept quiet most of the game, but on that play, they got heat on Lombardi. So they're getting heat. Now it's 2nd and 10. Mel Tucker's like, run it, run, timeout Michigan, run, timeout Michigan, punt, play defense, and live to play in the second half. I thought that was good. They stayed out of obvious pass situations. They were in a pass situation there, just ran it, and it helped Michigan State continue to play mistake-free football while also being aggressive. It was a great balance. I thought it was outstanding. I thought Michigan State's coaching was very smart, and that was probably refreshing for a lot of people to see that. Although there was a sense of frustration by Michigan State fans when Michigan State did get conservative there at the end of the first half. But I thought it was for good reason. You may disagree. That's fine. We will get your questions over there in the chat area in a moment. But a few more things about SpartanMag. Yeah, SpartanMag did make a big difference. You know, I don't know if Matt Allen could come back and be a good player again. I don't know if he was playing hurt in the first game. He struggled against that tilted defensive tackle of Rutgers. SpartanMag was in there and everything was fine. And there was one run play. It was Michigan State's second drive, the first touchdown drive. Jordan Simmons had that 26-yard run. Michigan was in their 3-4, three-man front, 30 down. And they had Van Sumeren up near the left guard area as a linebacker. And he rushed the passer. It's a four-man rush, not a blitz, but the linebacker's joining the rush. And he's slanting inside. And the pass-rushing linebacker stunts with the defensive tackle, Jeter, which can be a little bit tricky. Michigan State passed off stunts in this game like a veteran offensive line. And they did on this play. This is a run play, though. It wasn't pass protection. They passed off stunts and pass protection great all game. Hutchinson and Pay had a lot of success against Minnesota, inside and outside. Michigan State, when they faced inside stunts and pass protection, pass it off. Carrick was good against it. Buter was good against it. Passed it off, handled it. It's like, wow, where'd that come from? And I shouldn't say that much because pass protection was pretty good in the first game also. But these guys presented some different pictures pass rush-wise. Michigan State equal to the task. On this play I'm talking about, the 26-yard run, SpartanMag had a real nice play. And it showed a little difference in run game philosophy. And this dovetails into a question that we've got a little bit later. Somebody asked about run game. Let's see if I can find it. Joe Jarvie asked about it. So this dovetails into Joe Jarvie's question. So thanks for asking, Joe. I'll go ahead and coattail this one on to the SpartanMag question. Okay, second drive, Michigan State. This is one play before they went deep to Ricky White to go up 7-0. 26-yard run. Van Sumeren's coming in. He's blitzing. He's running a twist. He's rushing, but it's a pressure. It's not a blitz. It's a pressure if it's four people. In coaching parlance for most coaches. It's a pressure because it's not like a standard four doing a regular pass rush. It's three, and then someone's coming whom you might not at pre-snap see who's coming. But Van Sumeren was showing he's probably coming. There was pretty good communication between the center. You saw SpartanMag communicating before the play. And Van Sumeren's coming in blitzing, and Jeter's going to twist behind him on a stunt. What they did with the run play, rather than passing it off and trying to zone it off, the offensive lineman let him go where he wants to go, which you used to read in the old Barry Alvarez coaching manuals. I don't know if Barry Alvarez came up with that concept, but if this guy's blitzing and I'm left guard Buter, if he's rushing Van Sumeren, the linebacker, and the ball carrier's behind me, rather than trying to hold him up and stop him and get movement, you just let him go where he wants to go, and you just block him all the way to Ypsilanti. And then this cat right here, Jeter's twisting this way, and you're SpartanMag, and he goes around it, and he blocks him all the way to Plymouth. Just take him where he wants to go. So he took Jeter where he wanted to go, and Buter took Van Sumeren where he wanted to go. Daylight, 26 yards. Now, they didn't do that all day, but I don't remember. I've been looking for that for years. I'm familiar with the concept. A lot of you people are. But I hadn't seen Michigan State really do that on some zone concepts. Because it's zone, usually everybody's going in one direction. But in this case, they broke off of that and took people where they wanted to go, daylight. So that was a subtle but a different way to skin the cat in terms of run blocking in the face of a slant or blitz or twist. Well, they did it really well, and that looked pretty nice. SpartanMag, true sophomore, handled that like a veteran. All right, as far as SpartanMag goes, at the drive at the end of the second half, a drive that led to a field goal, Michigan State went up. It was the first drive of the second half. Michigan State goes up 17-10. Carrick did a great job picking up Kwity Paye on one of those inside stunts I was talking about. Jarvis is on the right side. Paye comes in on a stunt. And Samac is right there for him, stops him. Jarvis picks up Julius, what's his name, the kid from Germany for Michigan. And that was a 3rd and 8. And I think that was a play. I can't remember what they gained on that, but Samac really good in that one. I can tell you what they gained the next time it happened. The score was 17-17. Michigan had momentum. 6 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. Michigan State's second drive of the second half. Tie game. Michigan's got momentum. 3rd and 10. Michigan drops back into 2 deep coverage. The corners didn't really declare what they were doing. I don't know if they were, going to let the receivers go and do cover 2 or if they're going to carry them deep for cover 4. But they kind of, and underneath they kind of latched on, and it might have been man-to-man. It never really declared, even though it's a pretty long route combination. Michigan State had trips over here on the left. They had Gillison, Cade McDonald, and Ricky White. And they ran curl, dig, corner. And the dig was Ricky White. So 3rd and 10. And on this one, Hutchinson stunted inside. And Pace stunted inside. Pace stunted inside. Carrick picked him up. Carrick was really good in pass protection. Both guards were good in pass protection. The best we've seen Carrick and Buter in pass protection maybe ever. Carrick not only caught him, but was firm. And then Samac and Hutchinson stunning inside. Samac picked him up firm. 3rd and 10. That was a passing situation. Michigan State picked up the pass rush from the pocket. Dig. 18 yards, boom, down to the 40-yard line or so. And on 3rd down, Michigan State ran Connor Hayward for 7 yards to get into field goal range, kicked the 51-yarder. 2017, Michigan State's got momentum again. But that 3rd and 10, Samac, part of picking up that stunting Hutchinson, stonewalled him, picked him up. Communication, identified it, and then the physicality to make it work, and then a nice route combination. That was good. So you're asking about Samac. Now, Allen could have done all those things, I guess, but the run play was a little bit different. The pass protection was good with Samac. It's steady. And, yeah, I think Samac is the guy. He's a sophomore. He's got a high ceiling of potential. That's the way it's looking for the foreseeable future. Matt Allen, bless his heart, good Spartan. But I think it's Samac's time now. I think they'll get something out of Allen when he gets healthy again. But that was good, and that was a big reason why Michigan State was able to win that game, because center and guard play was so much better than it was a week earlier. All right, let's go check the chat area. Ty Garland in the house. I thought about Ty Garland today, and I might reach out to you, Ty. I might need you. Might need you to cooperate or to contribute to SpartanMag in some other ways. I'll be talking to you. Old Tuck, the bell cow, is here. Jacob Theory says, "What's up, comp?" Brian V says, "Good comp. Thanks for the SpartanMag Live tonight. I'm tired of watching CNN." I hear that, brother. Hope everybody's good. I love everybody. I love everybody. We got brotherhood going on here. Unity. Love it. Don't let them separate us. Gordon Tonona says, "Gordy's here." Ben Parrish says, "Chances that Andrell Anthony flips to Michigan State." Talking to our recruiting anchor, Corey Robinson and Justin Thind. They've got their ear to the ground pretty good. And there's been... here locally, Logan Page says, "Rick, we are on the same team here, but you sound ridiculous." I don't know what's going on with that. I hope we don't have arguments going on here. I'm going to go through here and make sure it doesn't happen, play some recess attendant. But there's talk in Lansing, too, not just in Michigan State circles, but, city circles also. That's the word. I'm going to say more than a 50% chance that Michigan State ends up with Andrell Anthony. That'd be interesting. Good receiver, and... we'll see what happens. See if Michigan tries to hit the gas pedal again to try to keep him. We'll have to wait and see. But Michigan State's been on him for a long time, never gave up. And he was impressed with Michigan State's victory over Michigan, as everybody was, right? Rob South says, "What's up, fellows?" Cartero 917 says, "I think we got to try to put as much pressure on Petrus as possible." A lot of alliteration there. Alliteration. You guys know what alliteration is, don't you? Got to try to put as much pressure on Petrus as possible. True are the tales that I tell of my travels. And putting pressure on Petrus be pretty good. So, in all seriousness, I'll have to look again to see how much pressure Northwestern put on him. It seemed to me that Northwestern was okay just dropping and covering. You know, if you get pressure with 4, that's okay, but he didn't look like a guy that could really do much against you, even if he didn't have pressure. But it was windy that day, so it's hard to judge quarterbacks on a windy day. I've done that before and been wrong. That's how you learn things in life, right? I appreciate what you're saying, though. Gordon Tenona says, Lorenzo White took Heisman votes away from Chuck. Bo Jackson won the Heisman Trophy in the closest voting of all time. Gordon Tenona with a little bit of some history there. Appreciate that. Lorenzo White, came in 4th that year for the Heisman? 1985 as a sophomore. So he took away some of those Midwestern votes. Lorenzo White rushed for 1,900 and change in the regular season, 11 games. And over 2,000 if you counted the bowl game against Georgia Tech. And back then, rushing for 2,000 yards at tailback was rare. And back then, they didn't count bowl games as part of your official rushing yardage. So at that time, the only people that had ever rushed for 2,000 yards, it was a short list. It was like Marcus Allen and like nobody else. I mean, Tony Dorsett didn't do it. Tony Dorsett, as he was known back in the day, in 1976 at Pittsburgh. He didn't become Tony Dorsett until he went to Dallas. Tony Dorsett didn't do it. Archie Griffin didn't do it. Eric Dickerson didn't do it. There's probably 1 or 2 others, but not many. Ricky Bell, I don't think. Anthony Davis. Who were the great running backs back then? I mean, the Notre Dame running backs, Vegas Ferguson, Jerome Evans never came close. Earl Campbell didn't do it. It was rarely done. They didn't count the bowl. You know, nowadays they count the bowl. So back then, Lorenzo White, as good as he was, would have even had that big positive asterisk and feather to his cap if they'd given him the bowl yardage, 2,000 yards in 12 games. So yeah, Lorenzo came in 4th, took some votes away from Chuck Long. Bo Jackson won it, and really deservedly so. Bo Jackson did not gain 2,000 yards. He was in a great backfield with AG was the fullback, and Lionel James, I think, was the other halfback. And it was wishbone, so the quarterback rushed it also. So they all shared the rushing yardage. Anyway, Austin Courier says, can't believe the Spartans opened a 9-point underdog. That is strange, isn't it? Well, the odds makers have been way wrong on Michigan State twice. 14-point favorite against Rutgers. Oops. 25-point underdog against Michigan. Oops. I think it went down to 21 by game time, I think. Logan Page says, what's the call-in number? Logan Page wants to make a phone call. I don't have that set up, my man. I don't have my headphones and stuff. We do that. That's open mic night. We will do that. I anticipate doing that after the game. Hope to do that like maybe 2 hours after the game is over. Yeah, Barry Sanders did go over 2,000. But at that time when Lorenzo White did it, Barry Sanders had not come along yet. I'm talking about people that were like the great running backs up until 1985. You know, Keith Byers didn't do it at Ohio State. He was a great one. So, yeah, Barry Sanders crushed it. He went for like 2,400, and he won the Heisman that year, and they were like never on TV. I remember seeing the headlines. There was no I was in Holden Hall at the time. We didn't have cable in Holden Hall back then. And you'd get USA Today. I mean, there was no ESPN game wrap-up. You know, you'd watch the Big Ten game and maybe a national game, and then World News Tonight would come on, and that'd be it. Then you went over to Akers Hall for a progressive. Right? So I remember getting the newspaper like on Sunday, Sanders gains 290. Like 290? Am I reading that right? The next week, Sanders gains 275 for Oklahoma State. I mean, who's this clown? Not clown, but yeah, Barry Sanders was putting up just crazy video game numbers. And yeah, and then Tim D was asking what Billy Sims had. Billy Sims won the Heisman as a junior and had like 1,800 yards, I think. But again, he was in a wishbone offense where they shared all the yards. Then also, I think Thomas Lott was the quarterback. Running backs, was it Elvis Peacock? No, Elvis Peacock was gone by then. David Overstreet, maybe. I Oklahoma. So I mean, they had like they were sharing the wealth at Oklahoma, just like when Bo Jackson was at Auburn. Charles White, I don't think he ever got 2,000. USC back then was I formation. The fullback I think was Lynn Kane, and so they had more of a feature back concept than Oklahoma and Auburn, even though Oklahoma and Auburn had better running backs. And Billy Sims was great. And Billy Sims won the Heisman as a junior. The next year was between Billy Sims and Charles White for the Heisman the following year. A lot of you remember that Sports Illustrated cover with Billy Sims and Charles White wrestling over a Heisman Trophy. Classic cover. That's when Sports Illustrated ruled the world. That's when tailbacks ruled the world. Billy Sims was great. Billy Sims was a household name for football fans. Winning the Heisman as a junior, comes back as a senior. Oklahoma was still good. So when the Detroit Lions drafted him, I mean, he was a household name as a college running back. And Billy Sims was my favorite Detroit Lion of all time. All right, let's go. Let's see. Logan Page wants the call-in number after the game. Be right here. We'll be doing the call-in show right after the game. Iowa. Should be fun. Rick Nash says, where is Detroit Spartan? Told you, one game in scrimmages isn't enough sample size to make a determination on Rocky. I'll be nice and leave it at that. So we got Michigan State fans kind of arguing about Rocky Lombardi a little bit. Rocky Lombardi, got to appreciate what he's done. I didn't see it coming. And how could you see it coming? He was doing all that improving behind the scenes. Again, bless his heart. Got it done. Competitor. Never lost faith in himself. And you can win with that guy. I said that after the Rutgers game, even though they lost. Now it's obvious you can win with that guy. Now we'll see what he can do against Iowa's zone coverages. They'll be changing pictures their own. Brad Fashenko says, Marcus Dupree, what were his total yards? Marcus Dupree was probably more talented than all those guys except for Bo Jackson. Big guy, strong. I mean, at one point for Oklahoma, his yards per carry, he was averaging like 11 yards per carry. Just eating up yards. I remember there was a bowl game, Fiesta Bowl maybe, Oklahoma against somebody, and I mean, he was gaining chunks. Gain of 12, gain of 8, gain of 13, gain of 9. He went to the USFL early. Portland Breakers, I think it was. Had some contract disputes, I think, maybe some injuries. ESPN 30 for 30 did something on him. Great talent, but never became the Hall of Famer that he could have, should have, would have been. But Lombardi, the other thing that impresses me about Lombardi, and Tucker mentioned this during the Rutgers game, the leadership aspects of it. The leadership. Things were not going well in the Rutgers game. Tucker was impressed with the way Lombardi didn't get rattled and the way he led. And you saw the leadership prior to the Michigan game. And it was just a small thing, but when Michigan State released video of their practice video in preparation for the Michigan game, there's one little clip where Rocky Lombardi was yelling at his teammates, didn't do it well enough, let's do it again, line back up, yelling at them, we're going to do it again. Didn't do it right, do it over now. Verbal, demanding, knew what needed to be done. That's leadership. Leadership in this game. Lombardi, late in the game, Michigan State up, or what was it, 20 to 17, driving from their own 8-yard line. Lombardi telling his teammates, hey, we're in this game. We're going to win this game. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. But verbal leadership. They're responding to him. And he's got the confidence now to continue to push that. I thought it was interesting that Mel Tucker said a couple of days ago that when Michigan State's buses returned to East Lansing after this huge win against Michigan, Tucker was happy to hear that some players were telling teammates, hey, in so many words, remember what we're doing. We're in our bubble. Don't go out and mix around. Leadership. Antoine Simmons, Rocky Lombardi at the forefront of that. We'll see what that leads to. Detroit Spartan says, just got here, buddy. In 2 games, tell you everything you need to know, right? Now, Detroit Spartan, I know you're a Spartan. Don't start rooting against your heart just so your mouth will be right. You had this argument with this guy. You weren't sure about Rocky Lombardi. I wasn't sure about Rocky Lombardi. My advice to Detroit Spartan is leave it at that and say, you know what? Lombardi's better than I thought. Let's all root for him. Because if you find yourself rooting against your heart, it's not a good thing. And I've done that before. Yeah, I covered Michigan State, whatever. But 92, 91, I was covering high schools up in Greenville. We covered high schools like it was the Super Bowl. It was a lot of fun. Didn't make any money for a little small newspaper. I was 23 years old, but we had a lot of fun. Lived downtown in one of those old buildings that were built in like 1880s. There was a bar downstairs, and I was 24 years old, 23 years old. Had fun. Covered high school football. Made a big deal about it. Belding High School, Greenville High School. That's why when Old Tuck calls in talking about the Seaway Conference, that's what I'm talking about. I know about those things. And among other things, we'd go cover Belding. Belding was becoming a power with Irv Sigler and those guys. They ended up winning a state championship a couple years later. But what we would try to do is, all right, Belding beat Ionia tonight. All right, how many kids can I name in this story? And Belding went 2 platoon in those days. They'd play 11 different starters on both sides of the ball. So all 22 of those cats are getting their name in the newspaper. Even if I didn't see, there's no replays. It's high school football. There's a touchdown. Okay, I'll credit those 2 kids with a block on that. When they score another touchdown, I'll credit the other 2. They score another touchdown. I was crediting people on kickoff coverage. You mentioned 30 kids in a story. Small town newspaper covering high school football. It's a beautiful thing. Get up the next morning, go get some breakfast at the local diner. And more than one occasion, I didn't have to pay for my breakfast because there might have been a parent of some players or a grandparent of players in the diner and saw that the idiot writer for the Daily News was in the diner. Hey, pay for his breakfast. As a journalist, you're not supposed to accept gifts like that. But I did, man. Nothing like a free breakfast, right? Anyway, when I was there, I wrote a few loudmouth columns about a few things. This gets back about rooting against your heart. I wrote a column halfway through that year saying the Detroit Lions were not any good. They kept winning. Don't worry, they're no good. They kept winning. They suck. Believe me, they kept winning. Believe me, the Detroit Lions are a joke. They're not any good. That was the one year that the Lions went to the playoffs, beat the hell out of the Cowboys with Eric Kramer, I think it was, and whoever they lost to in the next round, whatever. But guess who didn't get to enjoy it? The one playoff win in my lifetime as a Detroit Lion fan, I didn't get to enjoy it because my mouth had written that column saying that the Lions weren't any good, and I kept rooting for myself to be right. I got what I deserved. And that might be the Lion curse. That might be why they haven't won a playoff game since then. It might be all my fault, so I apologize to those of you that are Lions fans. Those of you that are Bears fans, feel free to go ahead and laugh at me because we know we got a lot of Bears fans here too. A couple more things here. Rick Nash didn't make determination on him. Okay, that's you two, your little spat going back and forth. Let's go back to the mailbag. Gator says, all right, Antoine Simmons and Noah Harvey are playing fantastic, Gator says. This is Gator from Parts Unknown. I think Gator's from Novi. He says, can they keep up their production all season, or do you see them wearing down as the season goes along? Well, Antoine Simmons has added those 10 pounds to play inside linebacker this year. He's a special specimen, but you know how things go with inside linebacker play. Things at inside linebacker are not as physical as they used to be 15 years ago, but it's still physical. I would anticipate those guys being fine all year. Now, you're going to have aches and pains and bumps and bruises. Don't have to worry about a 12-game schedule this year. But barring any unforeseen circumstances, I see both of those guys having added weight, good frames on them. I've got no reason to predict that they will wear down. 11 tackles apiece last week. They were busy. They were good. Against teams that run up the middle as much as Michigan does, I would expect those guys to do the same. I thought Noah Harvey was more at ease with his role this week than he was the week before. I thought Michigan State did more one-gapping early in the game. Last week against Rutgers, 2 weeks ago against Rutgers, they did one-gapping in the fourth quarter. He was more comfortable with that. He's still getting a feel for Michigan State when they go two-gapping, where the defensive linemen are into their offensive linemen, and the linebackers, as Ty Garland would know, are more jumping from gap to gap, read and react, read the flow, backfield flow, and you're free to roam like Percy Snow type of thing. Whereas if you're one gapping, that inside linebacker's got the B gap or the A gap, whatever the situation is. He's got one gap and he's hosting it, usually downhill. If the guy pulls, then he works off of that accordingly. But Noah Harvey's always been a one gap guy because Michigan State's been a one gap program. They mixed in some two gap a little bit more last year, but now they're primarily, in the first 2 or 3 quarters against Rutgers, they were primarily two gap, mixed in some one here and there. I thought at the beginning of the Michigan game they reverted and they were more one gap for a while. Then they mixed it up. But Harvey was better when it's one gapping, and I'd have to go back and look at it again. I've watched the game 2 or 3 times, but I need to go back and look just at Harvey if I get time. I probably won't have time tonight. But I'll be interested to see if when they did two gap in front of him, if he looked as unsure as he did at times in the Rutgers game. I suspect not. Gator says, who is Iowa's biggest playmaker since their best wide receiver is out? Their best wide receiver is Amir Smith-Marset. He was arrested for operating while intoxicated after the game last weekend, so he's out. And Smith-Marset, an explosive guy. Smith-Marset had a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown last year in the Holiday Bowl against USC. Last year, Smith-Marset had 44 catches. I'd have to look up the stats this year. I think the kid Brandon Smith might have more catches so far this year than Smith-Marset. So they don't have Smith-Marset. They're better when they have Smith-Marset and Smith. Brandon Smith, 6'2.5", 215 from Mississippi. Muscular guy. Reminds me in physical stature of Devin Thomas. If you remember Devin Thomas at Michigan State, became a draft pick for, I think, the Chicago Bears. Brandon Smith is a specimen. Last year, 37 catches. Now with Smith-Marset out, Smith becomes more of the feature guy. And I think Smith had a really good catch last week in a corner route fade, if I remember right. I've got to go back and watch that game, which I will tonight. But watching it once rings a bell. I think Brandon Smith had a real nice play in that game. Strong guy. Early in the Purdue game, they ran Brandon Smith deep on a post. Just, no double move, no hesitation, just post fast. And he was open by a step and a half, and Petrus missed him. But he's the guy that Iowa game planned in the script at some point early in the game. They were just going to streak him deep. Brandon Smith, good receiver. Of course, they'd like to have Smith-Marset and Smith. And the tight end, Sam Laporta, is pretty good. Iowa's had good tight ends over the years. Laporta, 6'4", 250. He's from Highland, Illinois. 15 catches last year, but he had 6 catches in the bowl game last year at the end of the year. 11 catches so far this year. I'd say he's more of a possession tight end, although against Purdue, he did have a nice corner route for about 15 yards into the red zone. He's good. It'd be better if they had Smith-Marset out there also. We don't know enough about this team, though. Is there a chance that there's addition by subtraction without Smith-Marset? I don't know. I don't rule that out as a possibility. In terms of raw talent, they're down a peg, no question about it, without Smith-Marset, especially in the return game. Question number 5, Spartan Dog from Parts Unknown says, what will our record be at the end of the season? I keep receipts. Wow. What will Michigan State's record be at the end of the season? He's just cutting right to it, right? I'm not very good at this. All right, so they're 1-1. The way I look at it, I think Michigan State split the first 2 games, right? Next 2 games, Iowa and Indiana. I got a feeling they're going to split the next 2 games. 2 games after that, Northwestern and Maryland. I got a feeling they're going to split those 2 games. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I need to see it to believe it. The team that beat Michigan can win all these games. They can beat Iowa, Indiana, Northwestern, Maryland. The chances of them having that level of sharpened angst and piss and vinegar and venom, physicality and will, to have that every single week is not going to happen. You can have it for 1 week, and it's great for 80, 75 guys traveling. Having it every single week, they can try. Maybe the bubble thing maybe can help them do that. I don't know. But little things like the level of focus that they had prior to the Michigan game, the hatred for Michigan, but also they saw how good Michigan was against Minnesota, theoretically. So, yes, they wanted to beat Michigan, but also there's a motivating factor there that they didn't want to get humiliated. They're looking at Michigan. It's like, man, we're just going to be all in practice. Every meeting, every snap, every repetition in practice. And like Mel Tucker said, all week of practice, all the way to the bus ride to the stadium. It was dialed in, and you saw them play. 0 turnovers, 5 penalties. Did they have one dropped pass? Few missed tackles, few missed assignments. Outstanding, right? So is that as good as they can play? You have to hope no. You have to hope they can build on that. But those things that made Michigan State play that well, that creates a baseline. Those things that made them focus that much helped them harness that level of play on that running play I was talking about a minute ago. When the pressure came from the linebacker, take him where he wants to go, stunt, take him where he wants to go. The intricacies of the run game, they established it, demonstrated it in a game. Coverages, same thing. Lombardi, same thing. So those things you learn as you go. So those things you should be able to harness and apply as the weeks go along. Down after down after down, I don't know. Can they avoid turnovers down after down? Of course not. There's going to be turnovers. So yeah, if they play like they did against Michigan, they can win 4 straight. I got to see it to believe it. So split the first 2, split the next 2, split the next 2. What is that, 3-3? I hope I'm not dampening any spirits. I'm not dampening any spirits. You guys know I'm wrong all the time. So it's all right. You can argue with me if you want. I don't care. It's good. What's going on here? And then the last 2 against Ohio State and Penn State. Probably not going to win those 2, but we'll have to wait and see what Penn State looks like at the end of the year. So am I saying 3-5? Maybe. Odds are that one of those games is going to get canceled. That's just the way college football is right now. You've got 8 games. Chances one of them gets canceled might be pretty good. So my guess, maybe 3-4. Could be 4-3. Could be 5-2. Could be 5-3. I'm going to say odds are Vegas 3-4. I'm kind of copping out in terms of an 8-game prediction. So that's your receipt. Spartan Dog 1 says, what will happen first? A Jim Harbaugh win over Ohio State or a Mel Tucker win over Ohio State? That's a damn good question, Spartan Dog. What will happen first? A Jim Harbaugh win over Ohio State or a Mel Tucker win over Ohio State? Damn, that's a good question. Does that count as a swear word? I don't know. You know, YouTube will flag you for foul language if you claim you don't have foul language. So I'm going to have to uncheck the foul language box, I guess. I kind of felt like Travolta doing that. Damn, that's a good milkshake. I could add some other words to that, and then I'd definitely get flagged by YouTube. That's from Pulp Fiction. Jim Harbaugh win over Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh may never beat Ohio State, right? I mean, as it stands right now, Jim Harbaugh's got a better chance to beat Ohio State this year than Michigan State does. And he'll have a better chance next year than Michigan State does. And he'll have a better chance the year after that than Michigan State does. But he may not get to next year or the year after. Mel Tucker is going to be around a little longer, I would say. Right now, Harbaugh's got a better chance to do it. But looking at what they look like right now, are they going to do it this year? Doesn't look like it. I know college football can change a lot between now and December when that game is played. But, I mean, that seat's getting hot in Ann Arbor. And I kind of hinted on the message board that there's a way for Jim Harbaugh to walk away from that job in a way that he will get 100% approval, pats on the back, and remain a hero. Could happen, I don't know. Maybe not. But I'm going to say Jim Harbaugh never beats Ohio State. Is that what I'm going to say? Meaning that he may not stay there much longer, because that's what a lot of people in Detroit are starting to think. Everyone knows that he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have a contract for after next year. And he's been sniping at the administration there. You snipe at the administration like he's been doing, you better not go 4-4 like they might go this year. I know we don't know what Wisconsin's going to look like. Wisconsin would have kicked him in the rear if Wisconsin had not missed all this practice time and so forth. Coach being out, quarterback being out, shutting down for 2 weeks. They'll probably beat Wisconsin when they play them. Penn State's not as good as they usually are. That maybe they'll beat Penn State. I don't know. So maybe they won't go 4-4. Maybe they'll go 6-2. But that's a darn good question. I don't have a good answer for that. That's a great question. But I mean, I just don't know if Harbaugh's ever going to beat Ohio State. How many more chances is he going to have? And how many chances is Mel Tucker going to have to beat Ohio State? Mel Tucker will beat Ohio State one of these days. Joe Jarvie says, we've not been able to establish a ground game. This goes along with the coattails of that question that we had earlier that I included as part of my answer. Joe Jarvie says, we have not been able to establish a solid running game to this point, and it doesn't look like a dominant running game is in the cards with Hayward as the lead back, and it's obvious that is the way it will stay. Well, you're right. They won't have a dominant run game with Hayward. Is it obvious that's the way it's going to stay? Not necessarily. If Jordan Simmons can continue to come along in pass protection, he could become an explosive running back. Dominant run game? Probably not. So you're right, probably not a dominant run game. There'll probably be one game this year when the run game chops off and they gain 240 on somebody. Maybe it's against Maryland, I don't know. Question continues. How much does it surprise you that MSU has chosen to ride Rocky's arm talent to lead the offense team to victory? Well, it surprises me that Rocky has all that ability. I didn't know he had all that ability. But you got to try something. If the run game is not going to be great, your only other choice is the quarterback, right? And they've got wide receiver talent. The pass protection is pretty good. So I think they're just playing the cards they have. WX Spartan from the banks of the Saginaw River says, Jim, nice to see the offensive line have a better performance this past Saturday. Pass blocking was great, but still seemed to be struggling with the run. I'm not as observant as someone who watches film like you do. Why do we struggle to get a run push? Is it talent, lack of strength, new system? What is it? Michigan State rushed for 126 against Michigan, which is not bad. I know Minnesota's tailbacks rushed for like 150. I liked the quarterback draws on 2, 2nd and 10. Like I said, Simmons 3.9 per carry on 14 attempts. A lot of them were on that 126-yard chunk. Connor Hayward 2.2 per carry, 13 attempts. Not great. Everybody knows that. I do think that the double teams on the inside were a little more solvent, a little bit more of a push, a little more confidence there that there might be something there. The week before against Rutgers, when they had that slanting defensive tackle, not slanting, but tilted defensive tackle, they had trouble stopping his penetration, and when they tried to double team him, he was still getting penetration. And Michigan State's double teams were getting pushed back, which is a problem. I mean, a double team you should always win a double team and then get off that double team and climb out to the linebacker level. Worst case scenario is the double team stays firm and you never climb out to the linebacker level. In terms of giving up penetration against a double team, that should never happen. And it was happening 4 or 5 times in that Rutgers game. And not getting movement happened every time. Not getting out of the linebacker level happened all but maybe 1 or 2 plays in the whole game. Against Michigan State's double teams looked and behaved more like conventional double teams, like an offensive line that has a pair. Know what I'm saying? Not there yet, but there was progress. We'll see with Iowa. Iowa's defensive line, 97. What's his name? Vanderhagen or something like that. He's all right. The other guy, 54. He's solid. Not as excellent as some good Iowa D-lines over the years. They don't play the same way, but talent-wise might be similar to Rutgers. Different types of guys play it differently, but it's going to be a great. Every game's a great test. You learn more about the team as you go. If Michigan State can rush for 160 against these guys, that'd be nice. And I don't doubt it possibly happening. What we got here? Let's. I'll go back to the mailbag in a minute. Let's go back over here to the live chat area. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. That helps more people get attracted to what we're doing here, and it gets more people in here. Let me see if I can. I didn't send out the tweet. Let me see here. If everybody can just hold on for a second. Rick Nash is still sending barbs to Detroit Spartan. I don't know what's going on there. Again, I might need to go recess attendant. Don't want any feedback. I'm going to put this out on Twitter. SpartanMag.com, everybody. Check it out. Sorry about this. Usually I have this typed up ahead of time. All right, there's the tweet. Thanks for waiting. Detroit Spartan said he had about 5 games worth the attempts. That was 42%. That's awful. Talking about last year, Detroit Spartan. I know you typed these things before my lesson about the Detroit Lions in 1992. I'm just trying to give my personal experience to you as an older gentleman. I'm 75 years old. As an older gentleman, trying to pass along some of my wisdom so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made as a younger man. Joking. Rick Nash, Iowa quarterback, reminds me of Stanzi without the accuracy. I'll go along with that. Rick Nash, very prolific tonight. I'm just going to skip over these. Logan Page says, Buff Page is a huge fan. Can you shout him out? Longtime subscriber. Shout out to Buff Page. Gordon Tonona, Rick Nash, what are you trying to prove? That you're some kind of know-it-all? Gordon Tonona showing some leadership with the community right now. Logan Page says, you know this Rick Nash guy? I always thought Rick Nash was a pro wrestler. Or was that Steve Nash? Rick Nash says, no, just don't write young players off without giving them a legit shot. Okay, Rick Nash, I can respect this. He's trying to drive home a point and prove another lesson, and it's a lesson that I subscribe to and agree with. And that goes all the way back. I'm sure it's happened many, many years before, but the most pronounced example of that was when everybody wrote off Eric Snow in basketball in the early 90s, right? NBA player, right? All Big Ten. Eric Snow was a great one. All right, Gordon Tonona says he sounds like a legend in his own mind. I'm reading, for those of you that just joined us, I'm reading some of the live chat points and questions, some of the community chat going on over here. I'll get back over to the mailbag questions in a moment. Got a question about Matt Dotson coming up. Rick Nash and Detroit Spartan. They're going back and forth, a little bit of a little hissy fit going on here, just making sure everything's clean. Okay, Chris Martinez asks, any word on Dotson's health? I'll stop right there, go back over here to question number 9 from Mike from Clarkston. He also is known as the Crunchy Bucket. The Crunchy Bucket, I can appreciate that. I've been to Crunchies. We've all been to Crunchies and had a bucket. What was the name of the waitress there a long time ago? The older lady. Somebody will know. She was outstanding. All right, he says, the Crunchy Bucket says, do you have an update on Matt Dotson? Read he was injured in the Michigan game, but did not see it myself. I did see it. I didn't see it when it happened. I did not notice it when it happened live, but those of you that watched on TV, you saw it, and it happened along the sideline. And he did clutch a lower extremity, and those things sometimes don't look very good. So I'm not going to speculate, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he didn't play in this game. And I've not heard any inside information. Sometimes I hear inside information, and all right, from now on, if I've got inside information, I'm going to go like that. Because you don't know who's watching this. If I knew that last week I heard Michigan State was going to go deep. Gosh, I hope I don't lose any sources on this. I wouldn't reveal something like that. We did... we did hear that SpartanMag was going to start. In the SpartanMag, in the pre-snap read, I mentioned that they could go deep. I didn't know how Rocky Lombardi, how well he would throw deep. None of us did. From now on, if I say something like, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State throws deep in this game. That means I know they're going to. Hope I don't lose my sources on that. That should protect the sources. But I'm telling you right now, I don't know anything about Dotson, and I'm not going to make a move to my nose on that one. But I wish him the best. Good guy that's worked hard. We've shown some progress this year. And a true senior, theoretically can come back next year also. And, the effort is there. did some good run blocking in the Rutgers game, although he missed run blocks on consecutive plays during a fourth down stoppage. But no, I've not heard anything. And they're going to have to figure some things out there at tight end. You know, in the Rutgers game, Matt Dotson played 52 snaps out of 86, and Trenton Gillison played 33 snaps against Rutgers. After Dotson went down, Gillison had to play more. Gillison played 33 snaps against Rutgers. He played 51 snaps against Michigan. Dotson played 32 snaps, then he went out. Burghorst, number 3 center, number 3 tight end. He played 7 snaps against Rutgers. He played 13 against Michigan, twice as many. So, Hayward gets in there and plays a little H-back. I didn't see Rosenthal travel against Michigan. He wasn't there that I saw. I'm not sure he got in the game against Rutgers. He's only 6'2". He's added weight. He's been a good fullback in the past. I'm not sure how his skill set translates to this system, but if Dotson's not available, they're going to have a new number 3 tight end. So Gillison becomes number 1. Burghorst has to become the number 2. It's time for Gillison to step up and become an all-around tight end. Michigan State, without Dotson, they were relying on Dotson. The tight end position, not good. They've not done a good job recruiting, not done a good job hanging on to players. Noah Davis transferred out. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Noah Davis had a chance to be a good, solid blocking tight end. You know, Parks Gissinger played tight end in the bowl game last year. He did not travel to Michigan last week. Tommy Guardo was the tight end they signed last year. Tight ends coach Ted Gilmore said 3 weeks ago they were hoping they didn't have to use him this year, which was a strange way to say things because it's not like using him, you're going to lose anything because there's no red shirts this year. But it sounded like he wasn't ready. He didn't travel. A lot of freshmen traveled to Michigan. Guardo didn't. But somebody's going to have to be ready. Everybody knows about Tyler Hunt, the former punter. Heard a lot of good things about him during the preseason. Former punter. He was a good all-around player in high school. I think he was from Gobles, Michigan. Was a run-oriented quarterback and a punter and a kicker. And I think a linebacker, too. And a good basketball player. Punted for Michigan State as a walk-on a couple of years ago, and Harbaugh got hurt. I mean, what kind of athlete is that? A dude that was like honorable mention All-State, quarterback, defensive player. Yeah, I punt too. Punters are hard to find, people. I've said this before. How many high school games have you gone to where you've seen a guy punt and you're like, oh yeah, that dude can punt on Saturdays? I've seen a lot of high school games. You'll see a good punter in high school, roll out a 35-yarder, right? But in terms of like booming 45-yarders time after time, not many cats like that out there. Tyler Hunt, yeah, I can do this. Now, Tyler Hunt punted in 2018 when Harbaugh got hurt, and then Tyler Hunt came in and did okay, averaged 40 yards a punt, blew out his ACL in practice. They went with Will Pristup for 4 games, and then they went with Bryce Behringer for 4 games. I'm not sure why they went back and forth with Pristup and Behringer, but they came out of that year with both of those players having punted for 4 games. They both retained redshirt status. Pristup transferred to Nebraska. Behringer planned to went into the transfer portal. No takers, came back to Michigan State. He's a guy that went to Michigan State for school first. He originally went to Illinois, as many of you know, dabbled as a walk-on, transferred back to Michigan State just to be a regular student, decided to try out. They thought he looked okay. They said, stay in touch. We'll call you if we need something. Well, then there were some injuries, and they needed him. And he played in 2018, 4 games, 40 yards per punt, not bad. Then he got hurt. Then last year, Harbaugh was back. Transfer portal, decides to come back. Michigan State goes out. They get the punter from UTEP to transfer in, Australian kid. And the guy from Australia averaged like 38 yards a punt, which is not so great in the Mountain West because a lot of your games are played in altitude out there, right? I thought Tyler Hunt would be the guy to beat out Mitchell Crawford, the transfer from UTEP. I thought Tyler Hunt, based on his 40-yard punt average in 2018, would beat him out. Turned out Hunt didn't do it. Behringer beat him out. Behringer looked good last week. Tyler Hunt went to the weight room, put on some beef, showed up focusing on tight end. And the coaches were like pleasantly surprised with him during preseason camp. Yeah, Tyler Hunt, the punter, the linebacker, the high school quarterback. I think I'll try my hand at tight end. Boom. He was looking good in practice, apparently. He traveled to Ann Arbor, didn't play. We've not seen Tyler Hunt on the field yet. I double-checked the snaps and haven't seen him. Someone's going to have to get in the playing group at tight end. Based on what we've heard, I'm guessing it's going to be Tyler Hunt. Now, he's only 6'2". He's not like a big tight end, but pass protection's got to be a big part of it. Tight end pass protection was a big part of the Michigan game last week. Iowa will not stress you as much with the pass rush, but Tyler Hunt be the first time he'll play tight end in a college game. Evan Morris, who's a similar type of guy at 6'5", kickoff specialist from Ovid Elsie. He dabbles in tight end also. He traveled to the Michigan game also. I watched pregame practice closely, but I did not happen to see whether Evan Morris was just practicing kickoffs during pregame or if he also did tight end work. I think he might have done tight end work. It wouldn't surprise me if Tyler Hunt and Evan Morris, a walk-on punter and a walk-on kicker, are your number 3 and 4 tight ends for Michigan State. I don't know about Rosenthal. I don't know about Guajardo. I don't know about Parks Gissinger. But you're seeing scholarship guys like Gissinger, Mustafa Khalifa, Larice Nelson. What's the guy's name? Latrez Alexander, the wide receiver that was hurt as a senior, that played some quarterback that's never gotten on the field. You're seeing some of these scholarship guys not travel. And you're seeing walk-ons travel in their place. You saw walk-on defensive linemen like Saylor and LaFave. You saw Tyler O'Connor, walk-on linebacker from Traverse City, travel. That's a head coach and a new staff finding their type of guys, rewarding them in the bottom 40 with travel, not just privileges, but travel roles. And some of those other guys that are not traveling, if they don't rally, you can kind of read the writing on the wall as to who's going to get phased out. That's just the way it is. Parks Gissinger, scholarship guy, defensive end, didn't work out. Tried tight end, helped a little bit in the bowl game. He was close. His family was close with Dave Warner's family. I think Dave Warner and Gissinger's dad played together at Syracuse. So now, I don't know, but they're gonna need to manufacture some pixie dust bodies at the tight end position this weekend. A couple more questions here in the mailbag area, then we'll go back over to the chat area, finish it out, and then I got to start watching some tape and get the pre-snap read going for tomorrow by 5 o'clock, hopefully. Eric from Water Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands says, why does the Big Ten allow Iowa to have pink locker rooms for visitors? That's juvenile gamesmanship. Conferences are supposed to ensure equal treatment for all. Conferences are supposed to ensure equal treatment for all. Is that a phrase on the dollar bill? It should be. I agree, the pink locker room, I mean, with all the psychology and all that was done in the 70s and 80s and the studies and all that was all cute and everything. But yeah, I agree. And it probably might work a little bit too. I don't know. Big Ten should not allow it. I agree with you. Question number 11. This is from MSU 2008 from Kalamazoo. He says, after watching film of the Michigan game, how would you grade each offensive lineman overall? We had an article at SpartanMag.com today called Trends, Schemes, and Analysis, and we looked at different things, offensive line play, route combinations, not real intricate X's and O's stuff, just trends, just what's going on in quotes from Rocky Lombardi and so forth. We included in that, and also at Underground Bunker Message Board, Pro Football Focus grades for each player on offense and defense. Talked about that a little bit. I can't argue a whole lot. Sometimes I do argue with Pro Football Focus and their grades, but they graded A.J. Arcuri like 48 or 49 in pass protection against Michigan. And yeah, he may not have been he may not have finished his assignment in pass protection every single play. But when you're going against a couple of early round draft picks, Kwity Paye is going to be a top 20 first round draft pick. Hutchinson might be a first or second rounder. I don't know. When you're going against those guys every down, because Michigan would flip flop their defensive ends depending on strength of the formation or field or boundary. You're going against those guys. When you're by yourself as an offensive tackle, if you can just survive a little bit and maybe give up a little bit of a pass rush and maybe push him past the quarterback and the quarterback steps up and completes a pass, you were beaten and it's a negative in the PFF grades, but you can live with that if you're Michigan State against those guys. So his grade wasn't good in terms of, how he did for his assignment against a general player, but those guys were not general players. Those were not garden variety pass rushers. I thought Arcuri was good. Arcuri was excellent with pass rush the week before. I thought he was functional. And I just went over the game again. I didn't get through the whole game. I went through the first 3 quarters, and I only looked at Pay and Hutchinson, who they went against, how often they were double-teamed, how often the running backs and tight ends helped. And you can't double-team both of them at the same time, right? You might slide and protect against one. But there were plenty of times when either Jarvis or Arcuri were on their own against either one of those players. When I talked about Michigan State throwing the ball on their terms, part of that is not getting in huge negative down and distance situations, which also means you don't have to hold the ball too long in the pocket and make second read, third read, we got to pick this up, sack. They stayed out of those situations. For Michigan State, the ball came out quickly. It was drop, back foot plants, ball comes out. So that was part of what Michigan State did to manage the pass rush threat. Arcuri was just good enough. Jarvis was not as good, but just good enough. The ball was coming out on time. And that's where those deep balls, 2-3 drop, go, 1 read, go. You can have a deep ball come out without the quarterback holding the ball very long. Michigan State will take that risk. It's not as much of a risk. Ball was coming out. 3rd and 15, running play. 2nd and 10, quarterback draw. End of the first half, at your own 20-yard line. 1st and 10, drop back. Pressure, barely got it off. We don't need a blindside sack, fumble, scoop, score. 2nd and 10, minute 30 left. Run it. Punt, play defense, get it back, run it. Halftime, 14-10. I thought it was smart. I thought it was very NFL-esque, some of those decisions. Jarvis did get away with holding at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, usually against Hutchinson. So Arcuri was fine. Jarvis got away with some things. Didn't cost him. Buter, big improvement. Pass protection, good with the run blocking too. Samac, talked about him earlier, solid. Matt Carrick, among other things, really good when filtering out those stunts. If someone's stunning from the outside, he was there waiting for them. Michigan did a real good job against Minnesota with Hutchinson or Pay stunting inside. And offensive linemen not seeing it and being surprised. Carrick was not surprised there each time, firm against it. One time I remember when Hutchinson got into Carrick, put him on skates a little bit, got off and got to the quarterback. Maybe right after he threw, or maybe it was a handoff the other way, can't remember. But I remember Carrick one time being put on skates by Hutchinson. But overall, Carrick was good. Duplain came in. Duplain was better than Buter in the first game. Buter really struggled in the first game to the point where I'm like, man, I don't know about that guy. How did that guy start? Then he started in this game, and I was like, man, really? The coaches know more than we do. We saw through the course of the game against Michigan that Buter can play at a higher level. What the problem was against Rutgers, I still wonder about that tilted defensive tackle and whether Rutgers surprised Michigan State with that and the possibility that Michigan State did not work against that a lot. Rutgers, Greg Schiano, when he was at Ohio State, I don't remember them ever doing that. Rob Smith, the defensive coordinator for Rutgers, when he was defensive coordinator at Minnesota, I went back and watched some games from that year. I never saw him tilt the defensive tackles like that. I think it was a surprise. I asked Mel Tucker about it. He says, we know about it. That's part of football. Again, like I said last week, I'm not sure if Mel Tucker would level with us and say, look, they caught us in something. They'd never shown that before. We didn't work on that. We tried to adjust during the course of the game. It's one of those things that happen when you see an unscouted play or an unscouted scheme the first game of the year. That's part of football, and we got caught with it. Credit to them. I don't know if he knows us well enough to do that. I don't know if he feels comfortable enough with the fan base to say that. He said they were ready for it, or he said it wasn't a big surprise. Well, maybe that's worse because they got dominated by it in the first week. But again, I don't know. But man, Mel Tucker was great last week. They were smart from top to bottom. They were great with the motivational phraseology. Great with sideline demeanor, great winning and handling the win like champions, top to bottom, made Michigan State fans proud. Question number 12, Ronnie M. for Parts Unknown. Actually, Ronnie M. says here from Grosse Ile, Michigan. Jim, I remember hearing last year that Rocky's hand size was a measurable that could be an issue in his passing capability in wet weather. Any truth to this rumor? Also, if you have time, who are your 3 moving up and 3 moving down players on offense and defense after 2 games? Yeah, that's true. Rocky Lombardi does not have big hands, and that's not ideal for a quarterback, and in wet weather or cold weather, that can hurt him a little bit. This weekend in Iowa, things should be dry. Offense, for me, up. Nick Samac, Ricky White, obviously, Rocky Lombardi. Those are my up ones. Samac, White, Lombardi. Offense moving down. Matt Allen, struggled in the game 1, didn't play in game 2. Bless his heart, I like him. Doesn't look great right now. Elijah Collins, 1 snap last week. People were wondering why Connor Hayward was playing in front of Elijah Collins in week 1. Elijah didn't look that good in week 1. Run blocking was not good when he was in the game against Rutgers. Only gets 1 carry against Michigan. But from what I've heard, what you've seen from Collins, that's what he looked like in preseason camp. I don't know what the problem is, but it's not. I don't know what the problem is, but it's not working for him right now. And it's been my experience that if things like that happen, it's hard to get those. It's hard to get that ship turned around in the middle of a season. I don't know if maybe he didn't work out as hard during quarantine, but they had plenty of time when they got back involved with the team. They had 5.5 weeks of winter training. I don't know what the problem is there. So the 3 down, Matt Allen, Elijah Collins, and then maybe Matt Dotson if he's not available, no fault of his own. Anthony Williams, I thought that he would have a role in the running back picture. Did not travel to Michigan. I've heard that there's some off-field things that he's got to get straightened out, some accountability things. Got nothing legal, just got to P's and Q's. So I've got 4 there that are down, 1 possibly due to injury, but we'll wait and see on that one. The last question, Steve in Syracuse. Jim, whenever a new coach comes in, there are usually 2 camps. The players that buy into the new coach and others that still wish the old system was there. As someone around the program, how was the takeover taken by the players? Have they all embraced the new system? Will there be some attrition this year? Thank you. Yeah, there'll be some attrition. We talked about that earlier, and the clues are in the people that don't travel. My sense is the buy-in went extraordinarily well. I mean, Mel Tucker has a presence. There are a lot of people that were excited to play for him. So I think it's been outstanding, better than usual. And also, Mel Tucker's a Mark D'Antonio guy. You can be loyal to Mel Tucker and still be loyal and thankful to Mark D'Antonio. So, and there's always players that don't really mesh with a new system. You know, when Mark D'Antonio took over, Dan Fortner was a safety that was a starter and pretty reliable player for John L. Smith. D'Antonio came in. They worked with Fortner a little bit. It wasn't quite their guy. They went with Travis Key. Fortner became a second stringer the rest of his career. That happens too sometimes, even for good, solid players. But I mean, everything has been positive in terms of the buy-in from what I've seen and heard and so forth. Cartero 917, any new word on Keon Coleman? Nothing that I've heard. Keon Coleman is the wide receiver from Louisiana, about 6'4". I think he's ranked the number 11 player in Louisiana. Watching him, he's a 4-star. He's a 4-star. Fast, hands, good player, but I've not heard anything. It's Louisiana recruitment. He likes Michigan State. He's been giving a lot of head fakes on Twitter that he likes Michigan State in various ways. State's in there. Detroit Spartan says things are looking good. Dan Fernandez says really liked the screen plays. Rocky was accurate throwing them. Bubble screens too. Yeah, the screen game. I mean, Michigan State has made screen games look like an impossible mission over the last 20 years. But there's a timing thing. There's dance moves to it. There's choreography, and then you've got touch, and then you've got Hayward with the hands. Then they get the one to Jordan Simmons that went for 30 yards that was called back by the illegal block by Naylor. That was really nice, and that was the first play of a drive again. First play of the drive, man, they were good. Looked like a team, didn't they? Damn.
William Nava says, would they take Coleman and Andrell Anthony? Good question. Michigan State's got 4 really good freshmen right now, true freshman receivers. And then Trayvon Morgan is a redshirt freshman, and he traveled for the first time. There's a lot of really good in-state wide receivers for the class of 2022. So would Michigan State take him and Andrell Anthony? That's a great question. I don't know. We will look into that. Detroit Spartan, let's see, still Rick Nash says, Logan, you're acting like a clown. I don't know what this means. William Nava, receiver room about to be crazy deep. I agree, William Nava. Rick Nash says, and don't forget Antonio Gates Jr. in the future. Correct. Chris Martinez says, based on those PFF grades, is it safe to assume Jarvis and Arcuri should fare slightly better Saturday? Yeah, I would assume so. Need to see Arcuri continue to do well with run blocking. I'm not seeing, great pass rushers for Iowa. Good solid defensive linemen, but nothing like Pay and Hutchinson. And that's the other thing. When you get accustomed to being ready for those dudes, not only their ability to threaten the edge, but also use hands and counter moves to the inside, or having your interior be ready to pick up stunts all the way to the B gaps, or to be ready to slide protections with your H and your fullback, your tight ends. I mean, you know how it is when you take a final exam, then you've like prepared and done well, now you're ready, and then the semester's over. That's when you're really prepared. Michigan State took a final exam last week, and they're prepared. They got to maintain that level of will, of course, but there's a baseline of excellence there that they should be able to continue to draw upon. Ed Francis says, hit the thumbs up button. Thanks, Ed Francis. Logan Page says, Rick, you are the clown. These comments are ridiculous. Logan Page says, Jim, can you kick Rick out, please? Rick Nash says, I'm talking football now. You're talking about me. Rick Nash, I'm going to throw a flag, and I'm going to issue a warning. Can't be picking fights out here. We're gonna go out on the playground. I'm going to separate people. I'm going to say, Rick, you can play at the swing set. And Logan and Detroit Spartan, you can go over to the teeter-totter. I don't want to see you guys mixing. If you mix again, you won't be able to go on recess after lunch today. You'll miss the second recess. So I'm going to ask you to separate. Now, these little arguments that are going on right now took place, I don't know, probably 45 minutes ago. So I'm kind of late with this. So I apologize to the people that are asking for Rick Nash to be kicked out of the tavern. Rick Nash is a regular here. So all these guys, Logan is too. So it's hard for me to play favorites. But we'll keep an eye on things. William Nava says, let them fight it out at receiver. Best players play. Logan Page says, Rick, we are on the same team here, but you just sound ridiculous. Logan Page, what I said to Mr. Nash, I say to you also. Mike Thomas says, what a victory over University of Michigan. Rocky was great. So was the O-line. I agree, Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas says, how is the Iowa quarterback mobility? I heard he is slow. Yes, he is slow at 6'5". Mike Thomas says, Milton is 6'5" too. I guess my question is the Iowa quarterback mobile or a statue? He's like a mobile statue. John G says, didn't Barry Sanders go for 2,000 yards in college? We went over that a minute ago. Chris Martinez, any insight on the negativity swirling around Iowa's program and the pulse of that locker room? Great question. I've not heard, but you guys know what happened, beginning with the strength coach being fired and, former players lashing out at Kirk Ferentz and the way the culture was while they were there. And a couple players lately joining the portal. It's not good, and they're 0-2. So you're going to see Iowa. It's prove your manhood week for Iowa, and that's a good, proud program with a lot of. They've proven a lot over the years. So you're going to get. I'm guessing you're going to get Iowa's best shot right now. So, as bad as things have been, I got to believe that all the psychological buttons are being pushed and whittled and sharpened for this game. If they lose again and go to 0-3, yeah, that wagon could go off a cliff. but it's not off a cliff yet. It's a wounded animal. Rick Nash says, Iowa's zone will be tough, no doubt. Have to work the underneath stuff. Won't be an easy game. I agree. Ruben Mays had a few good years, Tim D said. Yeah, Ruben Mays, he's at Washington State, right? Big numbers. That's when we're talking about old school running backs. Detroit Spartan says, that's always been his strength, leadership and attitude, talking about Rocky Lombardi. But Detroit Spartan, you have to admit, he's throwing with more accuracy now. Showed that some deep ball accuracy. He was not perfect with deep ball accuracy last week, but good enough, certainly. And that nice touch on the short game, and also good command of blitz recognition and protection designation, which was not as good in that Rutgers game once. Gordon Tonona says, we are all Spartans. It's very inspirational, Gordon. Thank you. Rick Nash says, Jim Comp is a wise man. I'm not sure what that's about. Oh, it's probably about my soliloquy about don't end up rooting against your heart like I did against the Lions in 1992. Ben Golf 9 says, what is the chance of MSU winning out besides Ohio State? The chances? Probably less than 10%. If they play like that every week, they could beat anybody except Ohio State. But harnessing that week after week after week, Michigan State's not there yet. But if they did, can you imagine? Can you freaking imagine? I'm not going to bet my lunch money against it. Yeah, I would. I don't have that much lunch money. But I wouldn't bet my dog against it. I don't have a dog. John Shirley, I would like to have one, but we've got allergies in this house. John Shirley says, Rocky's throwing motion looks more compact and efficient while maintaining arm strength. Check out the big brain on John. I think you're right. It is different. He's worked on things. I'd like to ask him specifically what he's worked on or who he worked out with. I know his dad was a coach. You know, the thing with Rocky always was he's a great competitor, great athlete. The thing was he's a great golfer, very good baseball player, very good wrestler. So comes to Michigan State, and it was going to be the first time that he ever focused on quarterback play for 365 days a year. And we didn't necessarily see that kind of improvement based on that added emphasis in year 1 or 2 or 3. But here in year 4, and focusing on it, you see it. Maybe he needed to get here, try it, have some success, have some failures, have some doubts, back to the wall, got to compete for the job, and maybe that's when he really pushed the gas pedal and found that level of improvement. Now it's week to week to week, but I think you can win with him. That's no secret anymore. John Carrera says, do you think the spread on the Iowa game is fair? Is it still 9? That doesn't sound right. But every time you think something doesn't sound right, Vegas gets you, right? I don't bet much. I don't know. I don't know much about the gambling game. As I've said many times, I don't bet. I don't gamble because it's just too much of a gamble. So I don't do it. But I think that allows me to be a little bit more unattached with some thoughts. A lot of times I don't even want to know usually I don't want to know what the point spread is before I write the pre-snap read, but couldn't hide from it this week. Then I've got to watch the Purdue game again. I've got to watch the Northwestern game. Both were close. They only scored 20 points. Quarterback struggled. D-line is okay. Linebackers look like Iowa linebackers. Not great, not like Josie Jewell, but they run okay. I know it's a couple times in the Purdue game they didn't really tackle in the back 7 like Iowa guys. Favored by 9? You give Michigan State a 9-0 lead to begin the game? I think Vegas is wrong on this one again. I thought they were wrong the first week. I wasn't sure last week. I mean, you saw in the pre-snap read that I had my scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, scenario 4. I thought, paths to victory. I thought that for Michigan State to win, they would have needed to force some turnovers, which I thought was possible because I thought Milton could have trouble with Michigan State's changing coverages. If Michigan State could get to a Kansas State level of proficiency with those coverages. A Kansas State level, meaning the level that Scotty Hazelton had as defensive coordinator last year. I didn't see enough in the first game to see whether Michigan State was there, but I thought they would make progress there. Coverage was good in the first game. I didn't know it was going to be that good in the second game. But I wasn't surprised that Milton would fail that part of the quiz. I thought that could happen. But I thought along with that, Michigan State would need him to throw 3 interceptions, maybe one for a pick 6 for Michigan State to stay competitive for a long time and take it into the fourth quarter. If you'd have told me Michigan would have 0 turnovers and Michigan State would have 0 huge plays in the special teams, I would have said Michigan State would have less than a 7% chance to win. Now, special teams, 51-yard field goal, is that a huge play? Maybe so. A couple of those punts by Behringer, were those huge plays? Maybe so. I'm talking like someone fumbling a punt or Michigan State getting a kickoff return for a touchdown, something like that. Anyway, didn't happen. And they still won because they were just a much improved team from week 1 to week 2. I think I was talking about betting odds when I got into that. Anyway, let's wrap this thing up here. Detroit Spartan says, I would love for him to be special. I'm just not sold. But he's improved. There's no doubt. I'm just not sure to what extent. That's fair. But you can see Lombardi's just throwing better accuracy than last year. This one will be a different quiz against Iowa. No question about that. Tim D says, I was at the Silverdome for that game. Oh, the game against the Cowboys? Must have been fun. John Shirley says, agreed. Detroit, time will tell. All right, Mike Thomas says, Rocky is interesting. Love his leadership. This is the first real shot. Can't wait to see how he is by next year. And also, I think theoretically, the way the rule's written, he can play next year as a senior, and then this year doesn't count. He can play again. I think if I'm reading it right, he can play this year and 2 more. For a guy that's improving at this rate and showing all this maturity and leadership, and he and Mel Tucker are getting along real well, be really interesting there. Things are changing. Things just the viewpoint, the Michigan State football program. When you look under the hood and see what's in there, it kind of changes every time you open the hood. And right now, Rocky Lombardi providing some horsepower. Mike Thomas, Joel Klatt made himself look really silly. Tim D says Klatt is the Michigan fluffer. Brad Fashenko says, yeah, right through it 51 times. That sounds like Bo. Rick Nash says, wow, Klatt, such a moron. Didn't even notice his bias. John Shirley says, did you see the Andy H video? Laughing out loud. No, I didn't see it. Nathan Winters says, I see most of you picked up on my funny, just making jokes. Bo's Wolverines, laughing out loud. All right, let's skip ahead here. Hayden Vischer, 4-4 seems semi-realistic now, for the record. I would agree with that. 4-4, play the crossover, win that game. I don't know if there's bowl games this year. They've talked about it, but I mean, we don't know if there's a game next week. But 4-4, win the crossover, go 5-4, win a bowl game, go 6-4. I think they can recruit off that. I think we'd take that. I mean we like as a member of the media. That might be fun to cover. I'm not gonna lie to you; it's not bad for business either. That's what I mean when I say we. John Shirley said, "I'm hoping Saturday is not a hangover game, and believe me, I know about hangovers." Tell us more about that, John. It could be a hangover game, and if they lose with a hangover, there's a reason. There's that cliche in sports and football. There are hangover games because it's happened hundreds of times before, sometimes to Michigan State. They definitely have to guard against that. D'Antonio was very good at guarding against that. We will start to get an idea how well Mel Tucker guards against that this weekend. Hayden Vischer says, I'd rather you dampen the spirits than tell us we'll win out. I'm not going to lie to you. I try to be right. I'm not right enough, but Detroit Spartan says Jim Harbaugh is not beating Ohio State. He may never beat Ohio State. Hayden Vischer, fact. Tim D says Harbaugh will be gone. Detroit Spartan says Tuck will most likely beat them at some point. Rick Nash says Harbaugh should retire. Nathan Hall, go green. When is the last time we all got to experience the Walmart weasels being utterly broken? Let's stay humble, Spartans. It is long from over. Nathan Hall, spoken like Nathan Hale. Check out Nathan Hall, speaking for the entire Michigan State fan base with words of wisdom. That was nice. Rick Nash says, Harbaugh always looks bored and confused on the sideline. Hayden Fisher says, contractually speaking, Tuck will be around longer, thus better odds. I agree with that, Hayden. That's why I picked him in that question. Jacob Carrera says, Harbaugh makes them so much money. I'd be very surprised if Michigan gets rid of him regardless of record. Good point, Jacob. But the way Harbaugh's been sniping at the administration can get you in trouble. If you're sniping at the administration, you better not go 5-3 and lose another bowl game. I mean, you can, but would they then just have him play next year with 1 year left on his contract? I mean, it's renegotiation time soon. Harbaugh does not have an agent, from what I understand. They go 5-3 this year, win the crossover game 6-3, lose the bowl game 6-4, and then he goes to the renegotiation table. And then Ward Manuel's in a tough situation. I hear a lot of people on talk shows and media people, Ward Manuel's got to make a decision here. Ward Manuel does not have that decision. Jim Harbaugh hired Ward Manuel. Ward Manuel is his boss, but Ward Manuel would not fire Jim Harbaugh because I don't think it's possible unless there's some sort of falling out that could happen, which I doubt. And then Ward Manuel could play the boss card then. But like I say, Harbaugh hired Manuel. Detroit Spartan. If he gets blown out by Ohio State, they'll look for ways not to extend him. I know some powerful clowns down there. They're already talking, says Detroit Spartan. And Detroit Spartan does know some powerful clowns in a lot of places. And I respect his information for sure. And I wonder if he agrees with what I'm saying about Harbaugh and the sniping he's done with the administration, what impact that could have. That can hasten the talking, like you're saying, the talking about looking for ways to get rid of him. And if they do get rid of him, what would they bring in? You hear talk about Luke Fickell. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? They talk about Campbell at Iowa State, but he's not done that great at Iowa State this year. He's okay, but come on. I don't know what they would do. I mean, you can win okay there. It's not like a slam dunk like it used to be. But if name, image, and likeness, when that changes and universities can basically start paying players or funneling money legally or, just the size of the fan base, whether it's name, image, and likeness or money on chats like these that fans can pay to players, Michigan will be able to outbid a lot of programs. And at that point, Michigan might be able to recruit and buy players at a top 5 level. Now, they've recruited at a top 5 level in the past, but they've not really recruited at a top 5 level lately. But when name, image, and likeness changes, that could be a game changer, whether Harbaugh's there or whoever. Doors fan. Kevin Nash is the wrestler. Okay, Kevin Nash is the wrestler. Was he Razor Ramon? All right, Detroit Spartan. Comp's old, but I have love for you. So you refer to me in second and third person and then second person, so I'm not sure if you're talking about me or someone else. Marcus Nevada says, Comp, what was the deal with the late defensive line substitutions in the last drive? Almost 12 men on the field several times. That was just tired guys. I mean, there was an 18-play drive, no huddle. So defense was tired. That's what that was about. Hayden Fisher says, Comp, you ever been a third base coach? Yes, I have. A couple of years ago with some young guys, late innings against Swartz Creek. In the last inning, maybe the second to last inning, down a run, tied it up, went up by 1, and went up by another run on the safety squeeze. And not just a safety squeeze, we did back-to-back-to-back safety squeezes. Never been attempted before, to my knowledge. The second one worked because the catcher choked. Because the first one caught him. Second one, the catcher's wise to it. He's trying to defend the safety squeeze, and the pitch wasn't there, and the pass ball scored. Third one, safety squeeze again. Anyway, Detroit Spartan. Whoa! Detroit Spartan. Detroit Spartan. Detroit Spartan. Detroit Spartan. Detroit Spartan. Thank you, my man, for the personal sponsorship. Thank you for the personal sponsorship. I feel like getting up and working the crowd a little bit and going around and taking questions out here in the studio audience after that one. We don't have a studio audience. Maybe one of these days we will. But thank you. Appreciate it. SpartanMag.com appreciates it. Thanks, man. Really do. Wow. And those personal sponsorships, we appreciate that. And people, we like it. And we love that sponsorship. We love the $2 sponsorships also. Those help a lot. And appreciate all that stuff, man. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Again, thank you. John Domka says, Ethel. Yeah, Ethel was the lady that worked at the bucket place, Crunchies. Ethel, she was great. She was so nice. She'd call everybody honey. She was an elderly lady that was a waitress there at Crunchies, and felt like your grandma was your waitress. It was awesome. Detroit Spartan Parks Scout Team Player of the Week. I didn't know that. That's great information. You know, that probably was on the press release that I never read this week. That's why you need to read the press releases. But that's great information about Parks Kissinger being Scout Team Player of the Week. Great information from Detroit Spartan on that one. That tells us that Parks is still in it. And when they award somebody Scout Team Player of the Week, yes, they're happy with what he did, but they also want to let him know, we appreciate it. You're not banished to the Scout Team forever. We recognize it. Keep doing what you're doing. That's what that means. So that's good for Parks. And just based on that, I'll bet that Kissinger, if he's still a tight end, he's going to be right there with Tyler Hunt for the third or fourth tight end. I'll bet, just a hunch, how things work in coaching, I'll bet Kissinger travels to Iowa after hearing that. I'm running out of voice here. The Rymac 1010 says, why isn't Collins playing? He isn't even getting snaps in the game. Elijah Collins just has not practiced well since they reconvened. Just hasn't. Get Detroit Spartan a t-shirt. I should, Seth. I should. We've got a few. You know, I got so many things to do. But I looked into some t-shirts. I've got some up there. I should do that. Detroit Spartan, I might need to get your address. All right. Detroit Spartan says attitude. We're talking about Elijah Collins. And he is getting reps. Unless you go to watch a punter, we're recruiting none. Canada has a lot of punters, Tim D says. I did not know that. Hayden Vischer says Kissinger Scout Team Player of the Week on offense. On offense. See, you guys know more than I do. Someone must have wrote that, and I got beat on that one. I missed that morsel. Damn it. John Shirley. Wow, meritocracy. John Shirley says, hadn't thought about Larice Nelson. Larice Nelson, they would not have upset Penn State and Happy Valley a couple years ago without him. Nathan Hale. I'm going to call him Nathan Hale from now on. Marcus. Learn from what happened to U of M. It's a rivalry game. Stats, records mean nothing when you are driven to beat someone into the ground. Nathan Hale. Spoken like a revolutionary. Nathan Hale says, given that State just embarrassed them on national TV, they are going to go hard at Ohio State. I just hope the Buckeyes don't make the same mistake and overlook the rivalry. Ohio State won't. And Michigan, I didn't think they still had the diva problem, but they still have the diva problem. John Shirley, Nathan, it's because Michigan has no soul, or they have no soul. Take your pick on that one. Seth Foreman says, sorry for the tardiness, watching the Queen's Gambit with the wife, as you should. Good for you, Seth, and thank you for coming clean on that with a full confession. But we will need a note from your wife. John Shirley says, watching Trailer Park Boys. Seth Foreman says, Barbarians on Netflix was phenomenal. Tim D says, what's Bubbles up to? Gordon Tonona says, watching Impractical Jokers. So all you guys are watching other TV shows while this is going on? I guess I can accept that. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad everybody's here. All right. What do we have here? Seth Foreman says, surprised Ant Williams was replaced by the freshman from Georgia. To an extent, but you heard that the coaches were excited about him from the beginning. Anthony Williams, not sure what the transgression is, but Anthony Williams is an explosive guy. I expected him to have a role this year, probably more than Connor Hayward, but we talked about why Connor Hayward is versatile and valuable at this point. Detroit Spartan says Jordan Simmons is legit. That Rutgers game, I liked his vision and the, decisiveness and economical footwork to get north and cutting to daylight without a lot of stutter steps. Stutter steps can be good sometimes, but he's finding daylight on the move. He got into the open on that 26-yarder last week. If he had an extra gear like a J.K. Dobbins or a Jeremy Langford, I think he would have been gone. So Jordan Simmons is good. He's good, but he doesn't have that next gear, I don't think. John Shirley, Simmons thrives on the field side during the 4-3 and boundary to the 4-2-5. I'll keep an eye out for that. Interesting. Seth Foreman says, I was encouraged that Hayward played within himself. I agree. Rob South says, Hayward was not used properly under the last coaching staff. He's being used properly now, and we are reaping the benefits. I'm a big Connor fan. Good statement by Rob South there. Troy Spartan says, I want to play four square or tetherball. Where'd that come from? Foursquare. John Shirley says, what about pickleball, Detroit? Detroit Spartan says something else. Let's see. Let me move on here. I'll just move on. Seth Foreman says, this whole season feels like a scrimmage, but it's always nice to beat blue. That's true, right? It was feeling like a scrimmage, and then that happened. All right, wiffle ball talk, badminton talk. John Shirley, it's hugely popular. They're talking about pickleball. Hayden Vicious says, I'm seeing -6.5 now is the spread. That makes a little more sense. If you got the +8 or the +9 for Michigan State, there's value there, I would think. Badminton, lawn darts. Nathan Hale says, I was very impressed by the post-game interviews that Rocky and Simmons had. They knew they would win and articulated it with class. I look more into that than what the coaches say. I agree. Those two guys, they're dialed in pretty good. Doors fan says Nash was Diesel. Okay, Scott Hall was Razor Ramon. Thank you. That's when I was just observing pro wrestling from the periphery. I mean, I was deep into it in 1985, 86. WrestleMania 1, 2, 3 around that time. Then I kind of got out of it. Super chat, man. Once again, Detroit Spartan. Really appreciate that. Really do. Really appreciate it. Makes a lot of this work worthwhile. Makes it a lot of fun. Makes it fun to do the job. It's good. And hey, guys, those of you that the $2 tip jar, love that too. Love that too. I'm not asking for it right now. I'm just for future reference. Appreciate that also. All right. All right, Seth Foreman, when can we buy some SpartanMag swag? I should be on that. I should get like a business intern from Broad School, Eli Broad School, and put somebody on that. Because I've been planning to do it, and I've got some ideas, but I've just never done it. Need a merch area here, don't we? I've been busy, and after I hang this up, I'm gonna get something to eat, and then see if I still have a family, and then I'm gonna watch that Iowa-Purdue game and then the Iowa-Northwestern game again. Then maybe start writing a little bit, sleep for a little bit, come back, start writing. Hope to get that thing done by 5 o'clock. I always want to get it done by 2 or 3. I'd like to get it done by 2 or 3 tomorrow because the weather's good. I'd like to get out and throw a little bit tomorrow. Those are the plans. But you know what's going to happen? It's going to be 6 o'clock, and I'm going to be like, damn, I can't believe I'm not done yet. And the family's going to be eating, and I'm not going to be done. I'm going to be mad because when I watch the Purdue game, I'll see stuff, and I'll do some film for a film room. I'll do some video stuff with narration. And then when 4 o'clock comes, I won't have time to produce that, and then that never goes up. Because I had some film room stuff for the Michigan game last week, and I never posted it because I ran out of time. And it was pretty good stuff. Specifically, would anything in it that would be tangible now in hindsight? No, I mean, there probably is, but whatever. So usually I'll work that thing and write a big pre-snap read, and I'll be angry at myself. That's usually the way it goes because I wasn't done in time and I didn't get all the stuff done I wanted to. That's the way it is. Seth Foreman says, Dakota, you're right. Ward is in big trouble. Dakota Vandentorn. Cool name. That's the first time he's chimed in. He says, they can't replace Harbaugh. The Dr. Anderson stuff is incoming still, and that is deeply ingrained into the football program there. Interesting. Seth Foreman says, Dakota, you're right. Ward is in big trouble. Now, why would Ward be in trouble? Would Ward be in trouble with the Anderson stuff? He wasn't around for that. But Ward and Harbaugh were players back then. Have they ever said anything about that? Sad situation, really. Jared Starkey says, Comp, I got sidetracked with election craziness. Sorry I'm late to the party. Thank you for being a nice, calming voice to help with my anxiety. Jared Starkey needing a nice, calming voice. I think we all need that. That's what sports are good for. Except when they lose, then we get mad at nothing because it's healthy to be mad at nothing. Right? It's like when they lost to Rutgers. I told you people, I'm like, you're a Spartan fan, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's a good thing. It's in your DNA. You can't shake it. You can stop being a Bears fan. You can stop being a Pistons fan, but you can't stop being a Spartan fan. You can stop watching, but you're still going to be a Spartan. It's in your DNA, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it was great on Saturday for you people. But you know what? Other fan bases, if we can just talk now, we're getting toward the end of this thing. We got a smaller crowd right now. If we could just talk, see, other fan bases don't know what this week is like, for better or worse. The euphoria, the afterglow of an upset like that against that opponent, against those guys, I mean, those unsavory people. Michigan's not always been unsavory people, but what they did, the way they won the last 2 years, the way they rubbed it in, and like Shea Patterson said, we wanted to make it sting, all that stuff. You win that game, it's great, right? But in order to really appreciate an upset, you have to be an underdog, a disrespected, underappreciated underdog. And there's a lot of programs that are never there. Michigan's never there. To their credit, they're usually an overdog, an overrated, but they're never an underdog. When they play Ohio State, sometimes they're an underdog. They play Alabama in the bowl game last year, sometimes they're an underdog, but rarely. And then they never win those games, at least not in the last 40 years. Lloyd Carr would do it occasionally, but in terms of, pulling a surprise like that, like Schembechler did against Ohio State in 1969, they don't get to feel that. Alabama doesn't get to feel that. Of course, we'd like to trade places if you're a Michigan State fan. You'd love to trade places with Alabama. But Saban talks about it a lot and says, victories don't feel satisfying anymore. Saban says victories are just a relief. They don't feel, even winning national championships for their fans, that it's fun and everything. But my point is, you have to have been an underdog. And it's no fun being an underdog because that means you've lost a lot of games. But Michigan has not been an underdog. They probably deserve to have been an underdog because Michigan State's been the better program than Michigan since in the last 20 years, throughout this whole century. 1/5 of a century, Michigan State's been the better program, but Michigan's never an underdog. They never have an underdog mentality. They may never want an underdog mentality. That's fine. They can be who they are. That's fine. But for Michigan State fans, with the Big Ten championships you've had, the division championships, college football playoff in 2015, the victories over Michigan, all that stuff, you still get that feeling of underdog when you're a 25-point underdog, and the euphoria of winning a game like that, and the afterglow that you felt all this week, regardless of what's going on nationally with the civics situation, the feeling that you have is something that they don't experience at Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama. Now, yeah, you'd like to trade places with Alabama. But a program like Michigan that has really they don't have much of a flag to plant in the last generation or so, they don't get to feel that either. So it's a special thing, and you have to be a Spartan to understand it. So I feel good for you guys for the week that you've had, and you deserve it because you took it on the chin in that Rutgers game, and it made the whole future look shaky, didn't it? And then not only playing good, smart, physical football, the command that Mel Tucker had, as smart as that coaching staff was, the way that they got everybody ready that week, the game plan, the offensive game plan. Jay Johnson showed me something. The pregame pep talk, when we saw that on All Access a couple days later, that was outstanding. The junior recruits, the class of 2022s, the 11th graders in the state of Michigan, they see that. They want to latch onto that. Michigan State, if they can follow up and go 5-3, the way they can recruit next spring based off of that stuff, first of all, it helps your program. You see a guy like Mel Tucker talking like that with that stature and that presence, that's an image that we haven't seen before a lot. It's special, it's new, and it's Michigan State. Wow. You combine that with some wins. Not only did that win do so much for him and the program, if they can build off it and make it look like, yeah, that's just part of the way they play football. That wasn't a fluke. Things are going to be smart and physical every week. If they can build off of that, not only does it help your program, but you just punctured a hole in the right rear tire of the Michigan Wolverines. You've elevated yourself and hit your chief adversary in the kneecap. In one fell swoop, going from 0-1 to 1-1 has been a shift in the continental plates, potentially. We shall see. Jared Starkey says, are we going to open the playbook up against Iowa? No. Going deep against Michigan State felt like they had a speed advantage at the cornerback position and not as much safety help over the top. Iowa is all about safety help, so the deep shots, not so much. I think digs, slants, and sometimes you might be able to get like one of the more famous plays was Kirk Cousins to B.J. Cunningham over the middle for like 60 yards touchdown in a game against Iowa. Was it a year after or 2 years after they were shut out? They were shut out in 2007, then they came back in 2009, or maybe they were shut out in 2008 and came back in 2010 and beat them. It really helped them get over the top. Michigan State, the D'Antonio era. On that play, Iowa sent a zero blitz, which they rarely do. They did on that play. B.J. Cunningham, catch on the run, 60 yards. But open up the playbook against Iowa, no. Try to run underneath. Maybe cover 2 hole if they're in the cover 2. They don't do cover 2 as much as they used to, and sometimes they cloud it up and they don't declare it cover 2 or cover 4. They do a good job disguising it 1 or 2 beats into the play, so you don't know if it's cover 2 hole or come back because the zone doesn't declare itself if they're playing it well. But open up the playbook, not against Iowa. That's usually not the way to go about it with them. That's one of the reasons they're pretty good. George Z says, any news about Joshua Langford? Not football, but still curious. It was, Izzo talked about Langford last week and said everything is still good, but he said you have to be cognizant of the fact that consistency is going to be hard to achieve with Langford right away because he hasn't played very much in the last 2 years. So he might have some good days, and then there'll be some battles. So don't expect him to be 16-point per game guy every night like he used to be. But everything still sounds good for Joshua Langford. And Konadyk's got a story about today's Zoom press conference with Joey Hauser and Aaron Henry. So go check that out, SpartanMag.com. Tony Chick says, or is it Tony Sheik? Is it Tony Sheik? Tony Sheik sounds like a guy from Studio 54, 1977. Tony Sheik says, keep up the great work, Comp. Thank you, Tony Sheik. Desert Spartan 1 says, is Chuck Long playing quarterback for Iowa this Saturday? No. Young Feezy Baby says, The Rock cut one of the hottest promos I have ever seen with NWO. You talking about like old days, or is there a new one? Well, I guess NWO doesn't exist anymore. The Rock. Eric Calder says, haven't heard anything in a while about a certain high 4-star linebacker from the West Coast potentially flipping. Is that still a possibility? That's the guy from USC, committed to USC, 4-star. He needs to, the visit, he won't commit until he visits Michigan State. So that doesn't get real serious until things open back up for recruiting. There's a chance this whole 2021 recruiting cycle could go start to finish with no official visits, sadly. So there's not been anything new on that because he's in a holding pattern. Seth Foreman says, yes, business intern Jamie from Joe Rogan. I appreciate that. We could use somebody doing some producing here like Jamie does with the Rogan show, but intern. I like one of you guys put that out there. Tell people that SpartanMag.com is looking for a business intern to help sell merchandise and to help promote the website. Hayden Fisher says, get Thind on that. Thind does a lot. He could kill it in that. You're right. Mr. Hockey Wings 40, GGG says, does MSU have a good shot at Antonio Gates Jr. still? I think so. They were leading for a long time. Looked like they were going to get a commitment from him. Then he canceled his decision to make a decision. Michigan State is still in there. Not sure what happened, but there's a lot of wide receivers out there. But yeah, I got to believe they're still in there, and that victory over Michigan did not hurt at all. George Z says, hear any news on Josh Langford? Not football, but still interested. We just talked about that. Detroit Spartan says, oh, they can replace Jimbo, and they will. This year? After this year? Wow. Young Feezy Baby says, how about Xavier Tillman's three-point shooting at the Combine? I didn't hear about that. I guess I missed something else. I've been working on other stuff, and I miss some of these things. But Tillman, it doesn't surprise me that he's really been working on that. That's news. I'm reacting to it as if it's factual, and I have no reason to believe that it's not. I thought Tillman was going to show and demonstrate good three-point shooting this past year for Michigan State. Didn't happen. Came out looking to do it. Didn't shoot real well the first 1/3 of the season, and then went back and let the game come to him. But he's got a nice shot release, and there's no reason why he cannot become a good three-point shooter. If he does that, like he did in the Combine, combined with what he can do on defense and rebounding, and great character guy in the locker room, if he can shoot from range, you're looking at a 10-year NBA career for that guy. That's what I think. Detroit Spartan says, there's a tight group of people that you can't piss off at the University of Michigan, and if you do, your days are numbered. Bet a win against, he says, but a win against Ohio State can reverse that. Don't bet on it. Wise words. He says, there's a tight group of people that you cannot piss off at the University of Michigan, and if you do, your days are numbered. And Harbaugh with his big mouth, I mean, it's probably good for college football that he has not won big, because this guy's been a sore winner throughout his career. He's an unsavory person. I mean, he's good with his, with some things, philanthropic in some ways and all that, but he doesn't subscribe to the Schembechler way of doing things in terms of respecting opponents and respecting the game, because he doesn't. And if the things end badly for him there, he deserves it. But the way he's been sniping at the administration, you can't do that with a 1-5 record against Michigan State and Ohio State. We'll see. And now the masses are kind of turning against him too, so he's going to be left, I don't know, unless he beats Ohio State like Detroit Spartan says. It's not looking so good. Seth Foreman says, totally agree on euphoria from beating Michigan. Still on cloud 9 from there's trouble with the snap, and that was over 5 years ago. Nathan Hale says, and the ball is free. Gordon Tenona says, in the hands of Jalen Watts Jackson. Seth Foreman says, and he scores. Nathan Hall says, yep, Michigan fans will never feel that. Gordon Tenona says, Michigan State is still the big brother on the block. And you understand what I'm saying. Michigan State has outperformed Michigan for the last 20 years, but Michigan State still has that ability to rise up and feel that satisfaction of a seismic upset like that against those unsavory people. All right. Young Feezy Babel says, shot 75% in a three-point drill. George Z says, can we please touch on the boys on the hardwood? Hauser, Langford, Henry, Rocket. George Z, go over to SpartanMag.com. Conan Dyke's got a story about that. I was unable to sit in on the Zoom press conference today. And it is strange because at this time of year, we're in November 5th. We should have already had one exhibition game maybe 2, and they should be playing the Champions Classic right now. I mean, it should be full-bore college basketball season. It's delayed. And even, obviously it's delayed, but even in past years, we should have already had 2 exhibition games. And even prior to that, we should have had Basketball Media Day. And and Izzo always opens up practice to the media. So in a situation like this, I could have, should have, would have already seen 6 practices, 2 exhibition games, and probably Champions Classic tonight in Chicago. That's where we should be, but we're not. And Izzo can tell us what's going on, but we've not been able to watch practice or exhibition games. So the information just isn't available to us. I appreciate Michigan State for the Michigan State basketball for making Izzo and players available for interviews, but in terms of having tangible things to talk about, just don't have much right now. But based on what Hauser and Henry said today, maybe there's more. Check out Konendyk's story over at SpartanMag.com. Detroit Spartan says he's deeply flawed. He's a deeply flawed human being. Talking about Harbaugh. I completely agree with that, and I see it. Nathan Hale says they are all deeply flawed. Detroit Spartan says correct. And with that, we will wrap it up. Once again, thanks to Detroit Spartan and all you guys, and Nash for settling down a little bit, and Logan for settling down a little bit. Appreciate everybody having a great time here at Spartan Mag Live. What did we go? Did we go 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that? 2 hours and 15? I didn't mean to go that long, but that's the way it is sometimes. Next time we might not go quite like this. Maybe do it with the other. It doesn't make a difference to you, but the video is a little bit better when it's out on my camera, and I'm angry about that. I'm glad it bounced back. But anyway, post game, keep an eye on it. We will have an Underground Bunker message board. I'll be telling you to look for Spartan Mag Live post game call-in show. We'll be taking calls then after the Iowa game. Hope you guys all have a good game on Saturday. Hope it's enjoyable for all of you. We'll learn more about this team as we go. Right now, I got to turn on the video, get something to eat, get ready for the pre-snap read. Everybody, if you're watching this and it's not live, SpartanMag.com. Check out the pre-snap read. Not going to have much time to read it by now. Get into Saturday, call-in show. Appreciate everybody for checking us out. Spartan Mag Live. We'll see you on Saturday. In the meantime, see you over at SpartanMag.com. My name is Jim Comparoni from East Lansing, Michigan. You've been watching Spartan Mag Live, powered by SpartanMag.com.